Welcome back to the first 3-hour Reddit stories compilation on this channel. Making such compilations takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of energy. But I love doing it. So without any further ado, relax, put on your headsets or AirPods, and enjoy. Yes, 2 things I want you to know. There will be many thunderstorms in this video, so be prepared. Number 2, if you'd like more of these videos, subscribe, turn on the notification bell. It would mean a lot. Let's start. My life is over at 23 and I'm just supposed to deal with it. I'm 23 years old and I'm already grieving a part of myself that is never coming back. Most guys my age are worrying about exams and grades and where they're gonna spend their next spring break. Me? I'm worrying about the bathroom light. I'm worrying about a light breeze. I'm worrying about the fact that every time I shower, I feel like I'm watching my youth literally wash down the drain in clumps. It's a specific kind of hell that nobody talks about unless they're 40 and making jokes about the shiny dome over a beer. When you're 23, it is not a joke. It is a death sentence for your social life. I look at my best friend and I feel this sick, twisted envy that I can't even put into words. We'll be hanging out and he'll just run a hand through his thick, effortless hair of his. And I have to look away because it feels like a personal insult. He doesn't even know how lucky he is. He gets to just be 23. I have to be a strategist. I have spent the last year becoming an expert in a field I never wanted to study, which is the science of hiding. I know exactly how to angle my head when I'm talking to someone so the thinning temples stay in the shadows. I know which stores in town have the safe lighting and which ones have those brutal lighting. I'm pretending to be a normal guy in his 20s, but 90% of my brain power is dedicated to making sure nobody sees the truth. The worst part isn't even the hair loss itself. It's the way it robs you of your firsts. I'm supposed to be having my first real relationship, my first summer road trip, my first taste of freedom. But I have turned into a hermit. I stopped going to the lake because I can't let my hair get wet. Once it's wet, game over. It clumps together, it sticks to my forehead, and the reality of how little I have left becomes public knowledge. I've become a hat guy. That's how everyone knows me now. I have a collection of 20 different caps, and I wear them everywhere. I wear them to dinner, I wear them in the house. Hell, I even wear them when I'm sleeping, because I can't stand the feeling of my head being exposed. How am I supposed to build a character when I feel like a monster? When I look in the mirror and don't see a 23-year-old, but a man who looks like he lived 40 years of stress. It feels like my body has betrayed me. It's like I hit puberty and my biology just decided, okay, we're done here. Let's skip straight to the midlife crisis. And the advice. God, the advice is the worst part. Every time I try to vent to someone, they give me the same 2 options. Number 1, just shave it. Bro, look at The Rock. Or number 2, women don't care about hair. Let's be real. I'm a skinny 140-pound kid with a narrow face. I don't look like The Rock. If I shave my head, I don't look like a badass action star. I look like a sick Renaissance orphan. Damn. Sorry. Caught me off guard. It really caught me off guard. Sick Renaissance orphan, yeah. And as for women not caring, that is the biggest lie ever told. Maybe women in their 30s don't care, but girls in their 20s, they care. They want the guy with the hair they can play with. They want the guy who looks like the guys on their For You page. I have spent hundreds of dollars, money I should be saving for a car, on minoxidil and specialized oils. It's pathetic. I know it is. I'm essentially trying to glue the leaves back onto a dying tree. The psychological toll is something you can't understand unless you're living it. I'm tired of being told it's not a big deal. It is a big deal. It is the loss of my youth before I even got to use it. It's the realization that I'll never have cool hair. I went from being a kid to being an old man in the span of 2 years. I don't know how to forgive my own genetics for that. I'm just stuck in this limbo where I'm too young to be bold and too bold to be young. And every day I wake up and look at the mirror and I just wish I could see the version of me that was supposed to exist. The version that didn't have to hide. Okay, so first of all, I would like to apologize if I laughed. Because I didn't laugh at you. I laughed because the way you said that, you look like a Renaissance orphan. I know exactly what you mean, so I didn't laugh at you. You just have a great sense of humor. Your sense of humor is somewhat similar to mine. So, brother, listen. I want you to listen to me, okay? I'm 26 years old now, and I am more than likely going to be bald in the near future. My dad, my uncle, all my uncles actually, my grandfather, my great-grandfather from both sides of the family are all bald. All of them, no exception. I have made peace with it. There's a certain year where I will start seeing noticeable shedding, and it's gonna go in a downward spiral from there on. I don't know if you know this, but I'm a medical student. In medicine, we have a phenomena that is called positive feedback loop, which, in simple terms, it means the result of a certain process causes amplification of the process itself. So the more it happens, the more it amplifies itself. Balding, in my opinion, or hair loss, is one of those things that could be caused by many things, obviously, including stress. When you look at yourself in the mirror and see your hairline receding, you get stressed. You get hella stressed. Stress is known to be linked to hair loss. So because of that constant daily stress, you lose more hair. Then, a few months later, you see that it has progressed to more hair loss. And the stress starts taking freaking steroids. It's a vicious loop. So, here's my advice to you. And I promise you, like 100% promise you, your life will take a positive turn after you do what I'm gonna tell you. Okay? So, unfortunately, I don't know what stage your hair loss is. Obviously, I can't imagine it based on how you're describing it. Because oftentimes, people exaggerate their condition. But I will tell you general things that will work regardless of your stage. Because you could have a mature hairline. I have a mature hairline. You're not really balding. So the best thing to do right now is to go to a dermatologist to diagnose or to know what exact stage on the Norwood scale. So the Norwood scale is basically the baldness scale. Or you don't have to go to a dermatologist. Go to Google, search Norwood scale. Compare yourself, take some pictures, compare yourself with how the scale look. After that, here's what I want you to do. Go to the nearest lab, nearest hospital, and have these tests. Order these tests. Vitamin D3, copper, magnesium, zinc, complete blood count, also known as CBC, iron, and ferritin. Vitamin B12 as well. You said something. You said that you're skinny. You're 140 pounds. I don't know your height. You could be 5'7". You could be 6'5". No idea. But take a thyroid function test just to know your baseline. If everything turns out within normal range, which more than likely, considering your age, it's more than likely normal. But you have to take it to be certain, to be sure. If everything turns out within normal range, no severe deficiency has been detected, and the hair loss is still there, you are more than likely suffering from androgenic alopecia, which is a fancy word for genetic balding. Now, you can do a few things about that. You can hit the gym, bulk up, have some mass gainer. I don't really recommend getting those manufactured already mass gainers. You can make your own. Different story. Or you can just eat more food. Shave your hair off completely and own it. You're still young. You can still build your personality. You will definitely get bigger. I promise you, you won't look like a Renaissance orphan. 100%. But if you don't want to do that, because that's okay. Not all people want to shave their head. Some people want to have hair. Here's the only thing that you can do. The only definitive treatment for hair loss, is hair transplant. Everything else is just prolonging an inevitable result. Minoxidil, finasteride, all these things. They will either give you temporary results, and you have to keep applying them literally for the rest of your life. And they're going to give you side effects. They're going to ruin your skin. They're going to mess up your hormones, especially with finasteride. And considering you're still growing, you're in your 20s, you don't want to mess your hormones. Trust me. Like, between having hair and messing up your hormones, just go bald. Don't mess up your hormones. I don't know if you know about hair transplants because you haven't really mentioned it in the original story here, so just gonna give you a quick run through. Hair on the scalp is not the same. The ones around the temples and on the top of the head, they're most sensitive to balding. The hairs on the side and the back of the head are super resistant to balding. They're basically built different. Save some money. Ask for recommendations for the best hair clinic in Turkey. Because Turkey is known to be literally the pioneer when it comes to hair transplant. Go there, they will assess the severity of your hair loss, and they will tell you how many hairs or how many follicles they could implant to give you a proper hairline while maintaining a natural one, because you don't want to ruin it. That's why I recommended you to go to Turkey. What else? Yeah, that's it. Life is beautiful, man. Don't worry too much. I know that right now, in your current state, you probably think that you're just stuck in this hell, that there is no way out. But believe you me, I know what I'm talking about. Once you get everything sorted out, you will realize that life is beautiful again. Like, I wish I can show it to you. I wish I can prove it to you. You just have to do what I told you to have your proof. If you have any other questions, Rovac is here for you, brother. You can send me anything you want. I got you. Take care, my brother. I don't think my mom caused it, but I think she knew it was going to happen. I'm 32 now, but this memory sits in my head like it happened last week. When I was 10, I lived with my mom after my dad passed away 2 years ago. We had a neighbor named Samir, late 40s I think, lived alone in the house next to ours. He wasn't creepy, not rude, nothing obvious, just the kind of guy adults didn't trust for reasons they never explained to kids. My mom didn't like him. Not in a normal, his annoying way. More like she'd go quiet when his name came up. If she saw him outside, she'd watch him through the curtain but pretend she wasn't. If he waved, she would nod but never smile. One afternoon, school closed early because of a teacher's strike. I walked home alone, unlocked the door, and the house was quiet. My mum's purse was on the table, stove off, TV off. I went to the kitchen window that looked into our backyard, and there she was, standing by the fence we shared with Samir. Not gardening, not hanging clothes, just standing there, still. On the other side, Samir had a ladder up against the side of his house. He was trying to fix this loose metal panel that used to bang like crazy when it was windy. The thing that stuck with me was how my mum was breathing. Even from inside, I could see her chest moving hard, like she would run, but she hadn't. Like she had run, but she hadn't. I tapped on the window. She didn't turn. Then it happened fast. Metal scraping, ladder shifting sideways. This sudden clack sound, then a heavy thud. The kind that goes through the ground more than the air. I couldn't see where he landed. Just the ladder tipped over. My mum stopped forward toward the fence. She didn't yell, didn't call his name, didn't run for help. She just stood there, staring over, hands gripping the fence. After maybe 8 to 10 seconds, she turned and saw me in the window. I swear to you, her face didn't look shocked. It looked finished, like something she'd been bracing Like something she had been bracing for had finally happened. She came inside fast, didn't hug me, didn't ask why I was home. "Go to your room," she said, with a calm voice, almost too calm. Sirens came later. People talking outside, the word accident over and over. That night, my mum slept better than I had seen her sleep in months. I'm not saying she pushed him. She was on our side of the fence. But sometimes I wonder if she knew something about that ladder, or about him, or about something he did. Because she didn't look surprised. She looked like a storm that had finally passed. And that might be worse. Months later, I heard some neighbors saying that he had a bleeding in his brain. He stayed in a coma for a month, and he passed away from complications of a surgery he had. I'm sorry, guys. We're over here. I am at good term with my mom, but I just can't feel that she's a safe person. I feel there's something dark about her. I just wish she would explain what happened. Maybe she knows something I don't. I guess I'll have to live the rest of my life with this story. I don't know what to say. Story number 2. My brother said it was just a fight, but fights don't change a person like that overnight. I was 12, my brother was 19. To me, he was untouchable. He was loud, huge pectoral muscles, veiny forearms, funny, always loud music blasting in his car, always surrounded by people. He was basically a character from a Hollywood movie, especially those that came out in the 90s and 80s. One Friday night, he went out like usual, around midnight. The house phone rang, my mom answered, and her voice dropped to this whisper I had never heard before. She told my dad there has been a fight. That's all I heard. They left immediately. I stayed with my Aunt Carol. He didn't come home last night. He didn't come home that night. I didn't sleep. Every car that passed, I thought it was them. At 8:30 the next morning, I heard the door open. I ran out. It was him. Small cut in his eyebrow, bruised knuckles on his right hand. But that's not what I remember. He was wearing a different shirt, different jacket, even different shoes. For weeks after, my brother was quiet. No music, no friends over. Maybe I was imagining things, but even his muscles got flat and weak. He would sit outside at night, alone, elbows on knees, staring at nothing. One evening I sat next to him and asked, "Did you win the fight?" He didn't answer for a long time. Then he said, "Nobody wins those." Damn. A few months later, a kid from another neighborhood was reported missing. It was on the news. My mom changed the channel fast. My brother got up and left the room without saying a word. For a good 6 months, there were posters everywhere with that kid's picture. Bounty for any news that helped his family get to him. TV channels showing ongoing investigations, but nothing really happened. And the whole thing just gradually faded and life moved on. Years later, when we are both adults, I asked him again, "What really happened that night?" He said, "I told you, just a fight." But his voice was flat, practiced, like he had repeated that sentence 1,000 times in his head. I'm not saying he did something unforgivable. I'm saying I watched my brother age 5 years in one night. Whatever happened out there, part of him never came back. Even after he got married and had children, there was always that look that if you were around him long enough, you would see. The look of a man that is in a completely different world. I can't say what happened exactly that night, but I know that my brother as I knew him is gone, probably forever. Third story. My dad made me help him bury something, and I still don't know if he wanted help or a witness. I am 31. When I was 15, I was dead asleep when my dad shook my shoulder. "Get up, come with me." It was 2 a.m., no explanation. We got in his truck, drove past the last streetlights, past the unfinished buildings, into open desert where everything looks the same. There was a big heavy bag in the back. I asked what it was. He said it was old junk. We stopped in the middle of nowhere. No road, just sand and quiet. He handed me a shovel and told me to dig a hole. Even though I was 15, the men in our family are known to be early bloomers with big, muscular frames, so I wasn't a typical 15-year-old. At first, I thought it was some weird life lesson. Hard work, responsibility, stuff that my dad used to tell me that his dad taught him when he was my age. But he kept looking around. He wasn't nervous, he was just alert, like someone who didn't want to be seen. We dug a hole, maybe waist deep. I was sweating, half asleep, confused. He lifted the bag and lowered it in slowly. And that part haunts me. He didn't toss it like trash. He lowered it like it mattered how it landed. When we covered it,
I asked again what it was. He paused, then said it's something that needed to disappear. We drove home in silence. The next morning, everything was normal. Breakfast, TV, him joking like always. A decade later, I asked if he remembered taking me out that night. He looked at me for a second too long, then laughed. You must have dreamt that, buddy. But I remember the weight of that shovel, the cold air hitting my sweat on my body, the way he kept scanning the horizon. I have no idea what we buried. I don't know if it was legal. I don't know if it was illegal or dangerous or just something shameful. But sometimes I wonder, did he take me because he needed help? Or because if I was there with him, he would have a solid alibi? Sometimes I say, what if I was questioned and I told the cops we buried something? Did my dad trust me that much? Was it a mistake he made in the heat of the moment, that he didn't think clearly? I still live in the same neighborhood. I'm married with children. Dad and mom still live in our old houses. I sometimes drive at night and say to myself, I buried something here. Something that I don't even know. It's just sitting there, after all these years, buried. No comment. For stories that I have no comment, even for stories that I do have a comment, you can go to the comment section and tell me what you think. Because sometimes I really don't have anything to say. I don't have any feedback, any commentary, nothing. I'm just reading it. Sometimes I do. Is this story number... I really lost count. I think this is story number 4 now. Yeah. I think my dad might have unalived someone when I was a kid. One night, when I-36F was about 8 or 9 years old, mid-90s. My father took my little brother and I to a Blockbuster to pick out movies. We left there and my dad stopped at a corner store for some snacks, and he parked on the side of the building. He left me and my brother in the car while he ran in. On his way out, a man came up behind him and held something to his side. My dad pretended he was going to hand the man his wallet, but he instead elbowed the man in the face, and he fell to the ground. The guy got up and came at my dad with a knife, and my dad fought it away from him and hit him with it. It was a long blade, and it went all the way in. The guy let out this horrible groan. I can still hear it. He left the guy on the floor, hopped in the car, and took off. For so many years, I thought this was a dream, until my little brother mentioned it to me when I was asking. If I remembered. We've never brought this up to my father, ever. I've always wondered what happened to that guy. But this was way before cell phones and stuff, so who knows? It's crazy the weight that comes off of someone when they say things they've always been holding in. This is a throwaway account for reasons that will be obvious. My head is spinning and I'm shaking as I type this. I, 34M, have been married to my wife, Angelina, 32F, for 10 years. We have a 7-year-old daughter. I thought we were the couple everyone envied. We never fought. We supported each other's careers and our intimacy. I thought it was great. 3 days ago, Angelina left for a 4-day corporate retreat in Chicago. She's a high-level marketing consultant, so travel isn't unusual. She kissed me goodbye, told our daughter she'd bring her back a souvenir, and headed to the airport. The first red flag happened that night. Angelina usually calls to say goodnight to our daughter. She texted and said, saying the opening mixer. I was running late and the signal in the hotel ballroom was spotty. I didn't think much of it. I'm a trusting guy. I've never really had a reason not to be. The second red flag was the iPad. Angelina usually takes her iPad Pro on trips for presentations. Last night, I heard a ping coming from the guest bedroom, which she had been using as a home office since the pandemic. I went in and found her iPad tucked under a stack of folders. She had forgotten it. I went to plug it in, intending to just leave it on her desk. But then, another notification popped up. It was a message from a contact named Sally-Logistics. It said, "Can't wait for round 2. This beats a corporate hotel any day." My heart dropped. I knew Sally. Sally is Angelina's boss, a 50-year-old woman who is married with 3 kids. Why would Sally be texting my wife about round 2? Yeah, that's a good question, brother. It's a very good question. I did something I have never done in a decade. I guessed her passcode. It was our daughter's birthday. The iPad unlocked, and I went straight to the messages. It wasn't Sally. Angelina had changed the name of the contact. Sally-Logistics was actually a man named Mark. I recognized him immediately from the photos they exchanged. He's a guy she used to work with 3 years ago. A guy she told me was arrogant and annoying. The thread went back months. It wasn't just a fling, it was a parallel life. While I was taking our daughters to soccer practice and making dinner, Angelina was planning business trips that were actually weekend gateways to Airbnbs 3 towns over. The messages, they were graphic, but the part that broke me wasn't the physical stuff. It was the way she talked about me. She described me as suffocatingly stable. She told him she felt like she was playing house with me, but with him, she felt alive. I'm sitting here in the dark. My daughter is asleep down the hall. Angelina's supposed to be home tomorrow at 4 p.m. I have downloaded every photo, every message, and every GPS log from that iPad. My hands won't stop shaking. What do I even do now? Update 1. 6 hours later. I couldn't sleep. I spent the last few hours going through the deleted folder in her photos. It's worse than I thought. I found a hidden album protected by a separate password. I also managed to get in. It wasn't just Mark. There was another folder labeled Vault. Inside there were screenshots of bank transfers. Angelina has a secret credit card. She's been funneling small amounts of money, $200 here, $500 there, from our joint savings into this account for the last 2 years. The total is nearly $1,500. She's been building a gateway fund. Damn. I feel like I've been living with a stranger. This woman looked me in the eye every morning, told me she loved me, and then went into her office to plot a future that didn't include me. I called my brother. He's the only one I can talk to right now. He told me not to say a word. He told me to go down to the airport tomorrow. Not to pick her up, but to watch her walk out. He thinks Mark might be with her. I also checked the flight records. There is no corporate retreat in Chicago. The company Angelina works for hasn't held a retreat in years. She's currently at a resort in the Poconos. Where the hell is the Poconos? I know this because she left a confirmation email in her trash folder on the iPad. I'm going to confront her over the phone. I want to see her face when she realizes the stable life she's been mocking is gone. I've already contacted a lawyer. He told me to stay calm and not to move any money yet. But it's so hard. I want to scream. I want to throw her clothes onto the lawn. But I have to think about my daughter. This is the hardest thing I have ever had to write. Angelina's flight, or what I thought was her flight, was supposed to land at 4 p.m. I didn't go to the airport. Instead, I waited at home. I sent our daughter to stay at my parents' house for a surprise sleepover. Angelina pulled into the driveway at 5:30 p.m. She walked in the door looking exhausted, carrying her suitcase. She actually had the nerve to walk up to me, kiss me on the cheek, and say, Chicago was so cold. I'm so glad to be home. I didn't say anything. I just handed her the iPad. It was already open to the thread with Sally-Logistics. The color drained from her so fast, I thought she was going to faint. She didn't even try to deny it at first. She just stood there, clutching her suitcase handle. How long? I asked. My voice sounded like it was coming from someone else. Ben? I can explain. Who the hell is Ben? Is his name Ben? Okay, I'm assuming it's Ben. She started the classic line, "It's not what it looks like." Mark was going through a hard time and things they got out of hand. 2 years, Angelina? I said. I saw the bank transfers. I saw the vault folder. I saw the resort photos from the Poconos. How was the weather, by the way, since Chicago was so cold? She dropped the act. Her face shifted from guilt to something colder. She didn't apologize. She didn't cry. She just sat down on the sofa and said, "I was bored, Ben. You're a great dad. But you're just a roommate. I needed something. I needed to feel something." I told her she had an hour to pack a bag and leave. She laughed. She actually laughed. She said, "This is my house too. I'm not going anywhere." That's when I pulled out the envelope from my lawyer. I told her that since I have proof of financial infidelity, the secret account using joint funds, and a mountain of evidence regarding her whereabouts, this was going to be a very long, very expensive roommate situation for her. I told her if she didn't leave quietly right now, I would hit send on an email I had drafted to her entire family, her boss, and Mark's wife. I didn't know Mark had a wife. I guessed. I was right. The panic finally set in. She started crying. Yeah, classic. Of course she's gonna cry. Not because she hurt me, but because her real life was about to be exposed. She packed a bag in 15 minutes. As she was walking out the door, she turned and said, "You're going to regret being this cruel." I'm the cruel one? Final update, 2 weeks later. It's been 2 weeks. I've been through a whirlwind of legal meetings. The Sally Logistics saga turned out to be even deeper. Mark's wife found out because I actually did follow through. I didn't want to be that guy. She deserved to know why her husband was working late so often. It turns out Angelina and Mark were planning to move in together by the end of the year. The $1,500 was her down payment for an apartment. My daughter knows that mommy is staying at a friend's house for a while. Breaking the news to her eventually is the part that keeps me up at night. Angelina has tried to call me 50 times. She's gone from begging for forgiveness to threatening to take full custody. My lawyer is confident. Between the evidence of her neglecting her parental duties to go on these trips and the financial records, she's in a weak position. The weirdest part, the house is so quiet. For 10 years, I thought that the quiet was peace. Now I realize it was just the sound of a vacuum where a relationship should have been. I'm hurt. I'm devastated. For the first time in a long time, I don't feel like I'm losing my mind. I wasn't suffocatingly stable. I was the only one actually showing up for her life. I'm starting therapy on Tuesday. I'm going to be okay. But if you're reading this and you have a gut feeling, don't ignore it. You did everything exactly by the book. Everything. I wouldn't change a single thing. And the last thing you said, if you're reading this and you have a gut feeling, don't ignore it. That is true. Oftentimes we silence our intuition to use our intellect. But more probable than not, your intuition already knows the truth. It's just your brain sometimes try to lie to you. So if you have any intuition about something, I'm not saying that it's 100% true all the time, because in this world, nothing is really 100% guaranteed. But all I'm saying is, don't ignore it.
For me, cooking isn't just a chore, it's how I decompress. I spend my Sundays prepping, experimenting with spices, and making sure my family eats well. My husband, Brad, is my biggest fan, but his best friend from college, Greg, is a different story. Greg is a foodie in the worst sense of the word. The kind of guy who thinks watching 3 seasons of a cooking competition makes him a Michelin inspector. 2 weeks ago, Brad asked if we could have Greg over for dinner. I went all out. I made a slow-roasted, braised short rib that had been in the oven for 6 hours, a truffle polenta, and roasted root vegetables. I spent $150 on ingredients and my entire afternoon in the kitchen. The moment the plate hit the table, the energy shifted. Greg didn't say thank you. He didn't even take a full bite before he started poking at the meat with his fork. "It's a bit overcooked, isn't it?" he said, looking at Brad instead of me. "The wine in the braise is too acidic. It's clashing with the fat. And the polenta, it's a bit grainy. Did you use instant?" I sat there, stunned. Brad tried to laugh it off, saying, "Come on, Greg, it's delicious." But Greg wouldn't stop. He pushed his plate away after 3 bites and said, "Honestly, I can't really do this. It's just not very tasty. Do you guys have any crackers or maybe some cereal? I don't want to ruin my palate with this much salt." I didn't say anything. I just cleared his plate, put it in the sink, and finished my dinner in total silence while he ate a bowl of dry Cheerios at my dining table. Last night, Brad mentioned that Greg wanted to come over again this Friday to watch the game. "Sure," I said, "but he's not eating here." Brad looked confused. "What do you mean, we're ordering pizza or something?" "No," I told him. "You and I are eating. I'm making lasagna, but Greg is not allowed to have a single bite of food in this house. Ever again. If he comes over, he needs to eat beforehand or bring a lunchbox like a child. I'm not providing a culinary experience for someone who insulted my home and my effort." Brad thinks I'm being petty and extreme. He says Greg is just honest to a fault and that I'm taking it personally. He argued that it will be awkward to sit there eating while his best friend watches us. I told him the awkwardness is a direct result of Greg's behavior. If he finds the food bad, then I'm actually doing him a favor by not forcing him to eat it. I told Brad that if he gives Greg even a slice of my food, I'm done cooking for both of them for a month. Now Greg is texting Brad saying I'm unhinged, and that he was just giving constructive feedback. Brad is caught in the middle, and my mother-in-law thinks I should just be the bigger person and feed the man. Am I the a-hole? First of all, why is your mother-in-law involved in this? That's a weird encounter. Obviously, you're not the a-hole. If there's anyone who's the actual a-hole, it's your husband. I don't even care about Greg. He's a certified piece of crap anyway. I'm more concerned about how your husband was able to listen to those insults and just keep it cool. This ain't Gordon Ramsay kitchen, buddy. You don't get to criticize food that way. You spent time cooking, you spent money, you showed interest, and the only thing he's worried about is Greg feeling awkward. Why wasn't he worried when his wife, when you, was insulted for making food? Or when Greg called you unhinged? What the hell is wrong with people these days, man? I'm so sorry you had to go through something like this. You definitely need to set boundaries. I'm not really a huge fan of ultimatums because they rarely work. But this is a very, very rare situation where you need an ultimatum with him. Thank you for this story. Take care.
I finally used my CPAP machine during an adult sleepover. Okay, so first of all, what's a CPAP machine? A CPAP machine is, well, CPAP stands for Continuous Positive Atmospheric Pressure. It's basically a machine that aids you to ventilate, to breathe. People who have, for example, sleep apnea, they can't sleep on their own because they don't have a patent airway. Sometimes because they have so much fat around the neck. Maybe they are obese. Obviously, there are many reasons. They use the CPAP machine because it basically it gives the oxygen in a pressurized way. Anyway, let's start the story. When I, 38M, single, was diagnosed with severe sleep apnea a year ago, it was a huge punch to the gut. I'm fairly fit, despite being a bit chubby, 6'2", 295 to 310 pounds. I do strongman competitions, local ones albeit, and I had just pulled off a big sports accomplishment. So having a bunch of doctors tell me I needed to lose weight despite training intensely 6 days a week and lay off the cookies was not exactly motivating. I'm trying hard to accept aging without turning into one of those bitter dudes, but this hit my ego hard. On top of that, I have never suspected I had sleep apnea. I honestly thought my constant fatigue was just normal single-parent exhaustion who is also a strongman athlete that deadlifts 410 kilos and bench presses 180 kilos. Sorry for flexing. You can flex, man. You can flex all you want. 410 kilo deadlift is ridiculously strong. It's ridiculously impressive. Anyway, it took me a solid 6 months to get used to the machine. It cramped my daily lifestyle too, especially with the amount of travel I do. But now, I cannot sleep properly without it. The first time I saw the machine, my biggest fear wasn't even health related. It was, What is this going to do to my dating life? I was convinced this plastic face-hugging alien device would destroy any chance at maintaining my lifestyle and completely kill romance, chemistry, all of it. Dating slowed down. No more sleepovers. The machine stayed hidden like a disgusting secret. Recently, I started seeing an amazing lady. I admitted to her that I had a CPAP machine but said I would never use it in front of her. Plot twist, she has one too. That still didn't convince me, and turns out she was just as hesitant to use hers in front of me. Our relationship is turning into something real, but the growing number of shared nights with terrible sleep for both of us was catching up. We were tired, cranky, and running on fumes. Finally, I took the plunge and sent her a selfie of me wearing my mask. She sent one back. Honestly, I thought she looked kind of cute. She said I did too. And for once, I actually believed it. Last night, I really wanted to see her, but I was completely exhausted. So I finally said, "You can come over, but only if you bring your machine." She did. We turned off the lights, put the masks on, and had an absolutely magnificent, deeply restful, slightly less cuddly than usual, but still warm night of sleep. I did it. I owned it. I slept with CPAP in front of a woman, and today, I'm not falling asleep at my desk, not questioning my life choices, and not dying of embarrassment. Turns out, breathing properly all night is kind of elite. Yeah. What's the feedback? What things I could tell you guys about this story here? If you're always fatigued, if you're always exhausted, and if you live alone, or you sleep alone to be exact, you might want to suspect that you might have sleep apnea. Because the problem with sleep apnea is you're not really conscious like the moment you start to have the sleep apnea. Sleep apnea basically means that you're not really breathing in your sleep. You have episodes or intervals of cessation of breathing. Your lungs are not breathing. The problem is you don't know that you have sleep apnea. So if you slept next to your brother or next to your son or something, they might say that you're not breathing when you sleep. Diagnosed perfectly. But if you sleep alone like this gentleman here, you might not feel or might not know the reason. So you should suspect sleep apnea.
I got circumcised at 19 years old. And yes, it is a bit too old for such procedure, which is something I will discuss later on. I just survived what I now consider the single most painful medical procedure I will ever go through. Circumcision. I'm not exaggerating. Let me walk you through what that hell felt like. So, it all started because of phimosis. My foreskin was tight, super tight, and it caused pain during certain activities. Nothing life-threatening, nothing extreme, just something my doctor said it had to be fixed. But when he said, we will schedule you for circumcision, I thought, okay, fine. I had no idea I was signing up for a trauma marathon. The night before surgery, I barely slept. Every horror story I had Googled kept playing in my head. I imagined scissors, clamps, needles, and worst of all, that sharp, burning pain people talked about afterwards. Spoiler alert, they weren't kidding. When I arrived at the clinic, I tried to act calm. Tried. My hands were shaking. I couldn't stop pacing. And then came the anesthetic. You'd think local anesthesia would numb everything, right? Wrong. First, the injection itself is like 10 needles of electric fire all at once. My body tensed up immediately, and I nearly jumped off the table. The nurse gave me that, "It's fine, calm down, look." But you can't calm down when your crotch is on fire. The surgery itself, it is hell in slow motion. The doctor worked fast, thank God, but the sensations were so real. Immense pressure, tugging, pulling. It's like someone's playing tug of war with a part of your body you didn't know could feel that many levels of pain at once. And the smell. God, the smell. I don't know why I didn't expect it, but that metallic clinical odor mixed with antiseptic, it's burned into my memory. Then came recovery. You think once it's over, it's done, it's over. Hell no. Hell to the no, no, no. Every step, every movement, every brush of clothing against you is agony. Sitting down is pain on steroids. Walking feels like a war crime committed against your legs and your groin simultaneously. Sleeping, forget it. Whatever position you're gonna recommend, it is the wrong position. I have tried them all. Every movement is a trigger for pain. There is the emotional part. I felt violated, vulnerable, like my body was temporarily alien to me. You spend your whole life thinking you're in control. Suddenly, something so small, so private, dominates your mental space completely. You're constantly aware. Every ache, every movement, every accidental brush against sheets or pants sends your brain screaming. People always ask, was it worth it? And honestly, right now, I don't know if I could answer that without screaming. The relief from phimosis is real, sure, but would I have willingly gone through those hours of absolute agony at 19? Not a chance. Hell no. If I had a time machine, I would scream at myself, don't do it. Stay uncut. Live with the inconvenience, anything but this. The first week is torture. Painkillers are your only friend, and even they only reduce the pain to a slightly less unbearable level. Ice packs, elevation, careful walking. It's like a full-time job, just managing the aftermath. And don't get me started on personal hygiene. Simple things like using the bathroom turn into exercises in patience, strategy, and willpower. By the second week, you get used to the baseline pain, but the occasional shocks of raw soreness are reminders that yes, this really happened, and yes, it really hurt. And also yes, your brain is still replaying the entire procedure in vivid detail. I catch myself flinching in the shower sometimes, even when nothing is happening. That's how deep it goes. If there is any lesson in this, it's simple. This is not a procedure to be taken lightly, especially at this age. Pain scales don't prepare you. Stories online don't prepare you. Your imagination? Forget it. Circumcision at 19 is a psychological and physical roller coaster, disguised as a quick medical procedure. Nothing about it is quick. Right, now the point I talked about at the beginning. And this is my opinion. I know this is a sensitive topic. If you're in a country where it's a common thing for religious purposes or even medical purposes, it is better to have your child do it when he's too young to have memories, because the older they are, the more painful it'll be. Brother, I can't say that I know what you're talking about, but I can feel that you're in so much pain. I don't want to talk about it because I feel like it's, irrelevant. But I agree with you that when you're 19 and you're getting circumcised, it is more than likely going to be extremely painful because of the way your brain perceives pain. Because usually circumcision is done when the baby is like a few days old, sometimes few months, few weeks. The baby is so young, the tissue is so small, there isn't that much pain involved. When you're 19, your body's gonna take so long just to recover. So yeah, I agree with you. I agree with everything you said. This is it's not a great story, but it's nice to hear some inputs about things that you haven't experienced.
My husband and I recently moved into his childhood home after his mother passed away. It's a beautiful house, but it hadn't been updated since the 90s. One specific room, the nursery, had a massive floor-to-ceiling mural of enchanted forest. Animals that his mother painted when she was pregnant with him. Okay? While it was a sweet gesture 30 years ago, the paint was peeling off. The style was very outdated, and quite frankly, some of the hand-painted owls looked a bit terrifying. I'm currently 6 months pregnant and wanted to turn the room into a calm, modern, neutral-toned nursery. I asked my husband if he minded if I repainted, and he gave me a distracted, "Do whatever you want, babe." I spent the last weekend sanding it down and painting the room a soft sage green. When his sister 29F came over and saw it, she had a total meltdown. She started screaming that I had erased the last physical piece of their mother's soul and that I was cold-hearted intruder. Damn. My husband is now siding with her, saying he didn't realize I meant I was going to paint over the whole thing. He's now suggesting we pay a professional to recreate a small section of it. What do you mean recreate? Like, it's not even the same. Anyway, a small section of it which would cost thousands of dollars. I refused, saying it's my house too and I shouldn't have to live in a shrine. Am I the a-hole? No, obviously you're not. You only had the green light after he told you, do whatever you want. I think the elephant in the room is how the hell did he let you do all that hard labor work by yourself? Even though you're like 6 months pregnant. Like, I assume you had to at least climb a ladder or something. He didn't even offer to help. Either way, you're good. Your husband definitely cracked under the pressure of his sister. Make sure to have that in mind next time there's something serious, because it might happen all over again. He might change his mind and side with someone else. Yeah, you're not the a-hole here. Okay, this one here, the story, she wants it in British accent. Okay, you got it. My sister, 30F, is a self-proclaimed perfectionist. She's been planning her aesthetic minimalist wedding for 3 years, my goodness. I, 28F, am a bridesmaid. I'm also currently 8 months pregnant with twins. Okay. Last week, my sister called a bridesmaid meeting and dropped a bombshell. She told me she had been looking at the mood board for the photos and felt that my protruding midsection would break the clean lines of the bridal party silhouette. She then presented me with a very thick, heavy, industrial-grade shapewear piece and asked if I could wear it to smooth things out. What the hell do you mean smooth things out? If I would wear it to smooth things out, or failing that, if I would agree to stand behind other bridesmaids or hold a very large bouquet over my stomach in every single photo. I was insulted. I told her I'm not a prop and that my pregnancy is a part of my life, not a visual flaw. I told her if she's that embarrassed by my body, I'll just attend as a guest. She started crying, saying I'm ruining her one special day and that I'm being unreasonably sensitive about a simple aesthetic request. My mom thinks I should just tuck it in. Tuck what in, Mom? The hell are you talking about? I should just tuck it in for the 2 hours of photos to keep the peace. Am I the a-hole? Man, what's wrong with people these days? Are people getting more crazier these days? You literally want her to put on an industrial grade shapewear. There are literally 2 babies growing inside that woman. They're 8 months pregnant. It's not like it's not a pimple, you know. It's not a pimple that you can hide with some makeup. Lady, my advice to you, attend the wedding as a guest. They will not drop this. They'll just guilt trip you into actually doing it. Obviously, you're not the a-hole. Okay, story number 3. I, 52M, have 2 children, Darla, 20F, and Devon, 23. 23M. When they were born, I set up 2 equal saving accounts for their education. Darla is a high achiever and is currently on a full academic scholarship, meaning her college fund, $80,000, has been sitting untouched. 6 months ago, Devon got into a serious legal trouble without going into detail. He made a massive mistake that could have resulted in a 10-year prison sentence. To get him the best legal defense possible, I drained Darla's $80K fund to pay the retainer for a top-tier attorney. It worked. Devon got probation and a clean record. When Darla found out, she was devastated. She had planned to use that money for medical school next year. Okay, she's a colleague then. I told her that life is about triage. Wow. And that her brother's freedom was more important than her graduating debt-free, especially since she's so smart she could easily get more grants. She hasn't spoken to me in months and told the rest of the family I stole her future. Am I the a-hole? Legally speaking, it is all your money, ma'am. You can do whatever you want with it. But don't expect your daughter to not have a type of resentment for you or for her brother. You have good reason, you know. You don't want your son to go to jail. But she also has a good reason. $80,000 is a hefty sum. I'm going to refrain from any judgment here or giving any verdict because this is one of those rare situations where I don't know if you're the a-hole or not, honestly, so no comment. Story number 4. This one is from Jessica. Am I the a-hole for being ungrateful when my fiance proposed with a ring he bought for his ex? Okay, this is going to be a juicy one, a juicy story. My fiance, 34M, proposed to me, 31F, last month. The ring is beautiful, a large pear-cut diamond. I was over the moon until his best friend's wife let it slip at brunch that the ring looked familiar. After some digging, I found out that my fiancé had originally bought this exact ring 4 years ago for his ex-fiancée. They broke up 2 weeks before the wedding and she gave the ring back. He's been holding onto it in a safe ever since. When I confronted him, He was defensive. He said it's $15,000 diamond. It would be financially irresponsible to sell it at a loss just to buy a different one that looks almost the same. It doesn't mean I love you less. It means I'm being smart with our future money. I told him I won't wear a dead relationship's leftover. Yeah, that's a good one. I asked him to sell it and use whatever money he gets to buy a new ring, even if the diamond is smaller. He refused, calling me shallow and materialistic. He says I'm valuing superstitious nonsense over our financial stability. Mate, you're wild, bruv. You're wild. What do you mean financial stability? She's not asking you to get her a bigger ring. What the hell are you talking about? Am I the a-hole? This is a pretty trashy situation. No woman wants to wear an engagement ring that was supposed to be given to another woman, and not just any other woman, to an ex. You can't be a reductionist about these things and only think about money and convenience. It's more about the sentiments behind it. You could have sold it, lost some cash, brought her a new ring that is specially bought for her. You're not the a-hole here, lady, but it's better if you tell him to sell it and get a new one. I really recommend you not to compromise, because his excuse was just diabolically ridiculous, so hold your ground. Am I the a-hole for leaving my successful child out of my will to provide for my struggling child? I, 74F, have 2 sons. Mark is a corporate lawyer who earns over $400,000 a year. He has a beautiful home, 3 cars and no debt. Luke is a high school teacher with 4 kids, one of whom has special needs. Luke struggles every month to make ends meet. I'm finalizing my will. My estate is worth about $600,000. I decided to leave 100% of it to Luke. My reasoning is that $300,000 Mark's have wouldn't change Mark's life at all. It's just another number in his investment portfolio. But the full $600 would allow Luke to pay off his mortgage and set up a trust for his son's medical care. I told them both my decision. Mark is furious. He says it's not about the money, but it's about the principle, that I'm essentially punishing him for being successful and rewarding Luke for his life choices. He says I'm showing him that I love Luke more. Luke is relieved, but the tension between the brothers is now so high, they aren't even speaking. Yeah, what did you expect, lady? Am I the a-hole? Tricky situation. Very tricky. Well, Mark is right. It's not really about the money. Even though personally, I wouldn't mind. Like, if I was making $400,000 a year, take it. Take the $600,000. Take all of it. Hell, I would even give him like $20,000-$30,000 every year to help him out. Because at the end of the day, you know, that's what money is for. Helping those who you care about. But going 100% to Luke is a bad move. Like, in my opinion, my advice to you is try and do like 70% to Luke and 30% to Mark. That way they're both included. $420,000, which is the 70% of Luke, is a huge sum of money. I believe that Luke can pay pretty much all his mortgages and still have some money, while Mark, on the other hand, gets like, how much is it? $180,000. At the end, it's really your money. Do whatever you want with it. Yeah, I can't give any verdict here. This is not, black or white or 1 or 0. This is very tricky. The phone rang at 2 a.m. The kind of sharp sound that only means blood or fire. It was my mother. My younger sister Chloe was in the ER. Her boyfriend, a guy we all thought was just intense, had finally snapped over something as trivial as a basket of unfolded laundry. He hadn't just pushed her. He dismantled her. Dislocated shoulder, fractured finger, bruises that looked like ink spilled across her ribs. I spent the rest of the night in a haze of adrenaline and nausea, coordinating with my parents as they sat in the waiting room, waiting for the police to take a statement. I was devastated, but I felt a small sense of relief, knowing she was safe now, and that the person who did this was going to be held accountable. The sun was coming up when my husband, Michael, finally wandered into the kitchen. I was sitting at the table, eyes red, shaking as I told him the details. I expected him to pull me into a hug, to be angry on my behalf, to offer to drive me to the hospital. Instead, Michael leaned back against the counter, crossed his arms, and let out a long, slow breath. Well, his voice flat and clinical. She honestly probably deserved it. She had it coming. What did you just say? Look, he shrugged as if he were explaining a boring weather report. Your parents baby her. She's fighty, she's dramatic, and she clearly doesn't know how to handle an adult relationship. The guy probably just hit his limit. You can only push a person so far before they react. Everyone's acting like he's a criminal, but he's probably just exhausted. I stared at him, looking for any sign that this was a sick joke. There was none. Michael wasn't just defending the boyfriend, he was identifying with him. He was reframing a brutal assault as a justified reaction to an annoying personality. Michael, he broke her finger, I said. He put her in the hospital. Are you telling me that if you hit your limit with me, you justify doing the same thing? He didn't answer. He didn't move. He just looked at me with this empty, unblinking stare that made my skin crawl. It wasn't a no. It was a don't find out. I couldn't sleep that night. I stayed on the couch, listening to the sound of his breathing from the other room, realizing that the man I had been married to for 4 years had just handed me a blueprint for his own potential for violence. Since that morning, the silence in our house has become heavy. Michael doesn't ask how Chloe is doing. He doesn't ask about the police report. He claims he's stressed with work. But I've started seeing things I was blind to before. I see the way he winces when I speak too loudly. I see the way he corrects me for small mistakes. The most heartbreaking part is Chloe. She's out of the hospital, but she's hesitant to press charges. She's repeating the same logic Michael used, that she should have known better than to start an argument when her boyfriend was tired. I realized that I'm not just fighting for my sister, I'm fighting for my own survival. If Michael thinks a dislocated shoulder is an acceptable consequence for being annoying, then I am living in a house with a time bomb. I've started a silent file. I'm documenting his reactions, his lack of empathy, and our existing marriage issues. I'm not waiting for my own limit to be reached. I'm looking at the exit door while I still have my health intact. I used to think my sister was the one in trouble. Now I realize she was just the mirror showing me exactly who I married. My name is Dylan. And this is the first time I'm talking about this to anyone, really. I'm just tired of bottling this down all these years. When I was young, like 7, 8 years, my mom said something to me that I didn't think much of until I was a lot older. She was telling me what happened on the day I was born. So, my mom isn't a fan of doctors and government institutions in general. So she had me in a home birth. And this is what she said to me. When you were born, we had mistaken you for a girl. A 7-year-old boy wouldn't really think much about it. So I didn't ask her what it meant. Fast forward to the 7th grade. That's the age where masculinity becomes a spectator sport. You're forced into these fluorescent lit rooms where everything is laid bare. And you realize for the first time that there is a hierarchy you never signed up for. I remember standing there, watching the other boys. They were growing into these men, and their hardware was becoming a source of visible pride. I waited for my turn. I waited for the surge. It never came. Even though I was 6'1" and strong enough to be a quarterbacker, downstairs I stayed in that prepubescent state of inadequacy. By 22, the quiet insecurity Dylan felt. What? That quiet insecurity Dylan felt turned into a mechanical obsession. I hated sports, I quit playing football, hated dating. I didn't have hobbies. I had research. After long sessions of research, I reached the conclusion that I have a condition called micropenis, which is a condition where the erect length is less than 3 inches. And apparently, less than 1% of men have it worldwide. It consumed me and made me feel worthless. I spent my nights in the dark. Blue light of my monitor, scrolling through forums that felt like digital leper colonies. Thousands of men, just like me, all looking for the back door into a better body. This is where the predatory nature of the world really shows its teeth. There is a whole industry designed to profit from the shame of men. I started ordering the supplements. I started the herbal blends, bottles with labels that promised maximum volume expansion. They smelled like cleaning chemicals and dirt. When those did nothing, I moved to the more aggressive stuff. The topical lotions that claim to stimulate blood flow through vasodilator technology. The collapse wasn't a sudden explosion. It was more like a slow, systemic burnout. I was about 6 weeks into a heavy cycle of a new, unregulated hormonal cream I had bought from a site that didn't even have an About Us page. I felt different. Not bigger, just numb. I remember the first night I realized the connection was severed. I was with someone. A rare moment of vulnerability for me. And the mechanics wouldn't just engage. It wasn't stage fright, it was a total lack of signal. The circuitry I had on my body had been fried. I had introduced so much stress and chemical interference into the system that my body had finally just quit. It felt like a power plant that had been run at 110% capacity for too long, until the generators melted beyond repair. Now, Dylan moves through the world as a ghost. I've become the ultimate misanthrope. I look at the standard guys at the gym or in the office, then I see them as nothing but lucky hardware owners. They have no idea how fragile the system is. They think they're men because of their biology, but they have never had to face the reality of a body that has completely shut down. I avoid intimacy like a plague, not because of the size anymore. I would give anything to just be small but functional again. But because of the silence, there is no signal. There is no bridge. There is no bridge between my mind and my body. I'm building with no lights, no heat, and a condemned sign on the front door. I am Dylan. I'm 32. I'm a man who broke himself trying to fix something that wasn't actually broken. The irony is that the smallness I hated so much was a perfectly functional, beautiful hardware. I just couldn't see it through the fog of the yardstick. What? If you're reading this and you're looking at your own measurements with that same dark, quiet desperation, stop. The world is a predator who wants you to hate your specifications. But once you trip the breaker trying to meet their standards, you realize that being standard was never the point. Being whole was. And I threw my wholeness away for a promise of an extra inch. Well, first of all, thank you so much for sharing this story with us, Dylan. That is the first step of getting at the right track. I'm not really the type of man that would sulk and comfort you with words, like pep talk and phrases like that. I want to give you solutions to your problems, to your current problems. So, first things first, you need to visit a board-certified urologist. In your mind, you might think that the connection is severed and that the damage is irreversible, because oftentimes we exaggerate things that aren't even there. But in medicine, we have machines that literally measure the conduction of nerves to assess how conductive they are or how things are in general. There is also rehab therapy that essentially focuses on rebooting dormant or weakened part of our bodies. Hell, there is hormonal therapy, which works in a lot of cases. And if all of that fails, a big if, there is also a mechanical prosthesis. It's called the pneumatic penile implant, which gives you erection independent from the physiology of your body. If you're from the US, I think it might be even covered by health insurance, like complete coverage. That being said, as a medical student myself who's only a couple of semesters away from graduation, I feel it's more of an obligation to take this opportunity to talk to mothers, fathers who are either expecting or already have children. You need to pay attention to your children. The mother of Dylan in this story, she said a comment that could have solved that issue completely. She said she thought he was a girl, which is like she's implying that his male genitalia was almost non-existent. If she had said that to a family physician, just a normal family physician or a pediatrician, they could have done tests to see where the issue is from and implemented a management plan to make sure that his size would reach the average range by the time he completely finishes puberty. Now, I'm not saying that this condition here is completely curable for all people, but I'm saying it might have been curable. And if you don't do your investigations, if you don't do attempts of treatment, you'll never know. Thank you again. This I don't think it was easy for you to share such story. I hope you're listening. I almost forgot, which is like very, very important. Those pills, those herbs, those lotions, creams, injections that are sold and promoted and advertised to increase size all over the internet, they do absolutely nothing. They will just ruin your natural erection. They know there's a huge dollar sign over the heads of these vulnerable people, just like Dylan said. And they're willing to exploit them. So, don't be that gullible to try them. My name is James, 42 years old. In 2003, I was 20 years old and filled with a crazy, blinding sense of purpose. I grew up in a small town where the flag wasn't just a fabric, it was a moral compass. When the drums of war started beating for Iraq, I didn't just walk to the recruitment office, I ran. The integrity of the mission seemed sound. We were told that we were told there were weapons of mass destruction, WMDs. We were told about a dictator with his finger on a chemical trigger. I believed I was a part of a global surgical strike to save humanity from a dark and imminent threat. I was ready to be the hero. When we crossed the border from Kuwait, the adrenaline was high. I was a combat engineer, trained to find the very things that were supposed to justify our presence. We swept bunkers, we raided industrial sites, and we interrogated scientists. But the further we pushed into the desert, the more the mission's purpose began to crumble. Every high-value site we investigated turned out to be a fertilizer plant, a flour mill, or an empty warehouse covered in decades of bird droppings. There were no hidden nukes. There were no vats of nerve gas. There was only a lot of sand and a lot of confused, terrified civilians. By my second tour in 2005, the WMD narrative had quietly vanished from the briefings. It was replaced by nation building and stability operations, but the reality on the ground was evil. I started noticing who was actually benefiting from our reconstruction. It wasn't the local Iraqis, it was the contractors, men in clean khakis and polo shirts from companies like Halliburton and KBR. I spent my days guarding oil pipelines and refinery equipment while the city of Fallujah didn't even have clean water. I realized I wasn't a soldier for justice. I was a security guard for a multi-billion-dollar resource extraction project. The darkest moment came during a night raid in a small village near Tikrit. We kicked in the door of a home based on intelligence that proved to be a lie. We kicked in the door of a home based on intelligence that proved to be a lie. I remember looking at the face of a father holding his two young daughters. He didn't look like a terrorist. He looked like me. He looked like every man I knew back home who just wanted to protect his house. In that moment, the hero mask shattered. I wasn't there to stop a tyrant. I was the invader. I was the one bringing the crazy violence to a family that had done nothing to me. I was the aggressor, and my rifle was just a tool to ensure that the ones in charge could maintain their grip on the region's energy wealth. I began to see the war as a giant shell game. The government was spending the lives of 20-year-olds like currency, and that currency was being deposited into the accounts of defense contractors and oil tycoons. We were told we were fighting for democracy, but we were actually building the infrastructure for a corporate takeover. Every life lost, American or Iraqi, was just a line to them in a ledger of someone's quarterly earnings report. The realization was evil. It made the air in my lungs feel heavy, like I was breathing in lead. I came in 2007, but the James who left in 2003 didn't survive. I saw the flags in my hometown and felt a dark sense of betrayal. People thanked me for my service, but I wanted to apologize to them for being part of a scam. I had been trained to build bridges and clear paths, but all I had done was help build a monument to greed. I developed a twisted sense of irony. I went to find WMDs and found that the most dangerous weapon of mass destruction was the lie that sent us here in the first place. Today I work as a civil engineer. I build things that actually save people. Water systems, parks, schools. I don't follow directors anymore. I follow my own moral compass. I don't go to parades. I don't wear the old uniform. I spend my time helping other veterans who realize the same crazy truth I did. We were the support for a building that was never meant to house the truth. You were just the labor. I only loved her when she was leaving. I used to think being a good boyfriend meant not doing anything bad. I didn't cheat, didn't yell, didn't control her. So in my head, I was solid. Her name was Lena. We met in university. She laughed at my stupid jokes, listened to my rants, showed up to my football games. Even when she didn't understand the rules, she was steady, warm, easy. And I treated that like background noise. She would send me voice notes about her day, long ones, stories about co-workers, her mum, just random thoughts. I would listen halfway while gaming and reply, "Damn, that's crazy. People are weird, for real." I told myself, she knows I care. But care without effort looks a lot like indifference. She would ask to hang out, and I would say, "I'm tired." She would dress up, and I would say, "You look nice." Without looking up from my phone, she would say, "I miss you," and I would say, "You just saw me yesterday." There were little dismissals. Death by paper cuts. One night she asked, "Do you ever feel like I'm more into this than you are?" I laughed. "Why do you overthink everything?" That became my signature move. Make her question her feelings instead of checking mine. Over time, she got quieter. Not angry, just smaller. Texts got shorter. She stopped sending pictures of random things she saw during the day. She stopped telling me when something upset her. I thought, nice. Less drama. I didn't realize she wasn't being less emotional. She was emotionally detaching. Then came the night. We were in my car, engine off, just sitting. She looked calm, which made it worse. "I feel alone in this relationship," she said. I immediately got defensive. How? I'm right here. She shook her head. Physically, yeah, but emotionally, I feel like I'm talking to a wall that occasionally says, LOL. I laughed again, nervous. So what? You want to break up over texts? She didn't argue, didn't cry. I think I already lost you a long time ago, she said softly. That sentence punched harder than yelling ever could. Suddenly, panic hit. My brain switched modes. I grabbed her hand. No, no, no. I love you. I've just been stressed. I will do better. And I meant it. That is the messed up part. I meant it only when I felt her leaving. I started sending long messages, planning dates, calling more. She accepted everything politely, but the spark was gone. I wasn't saving the relationship. I was trying to restart a heart that had already stopped. When she finally ended it, she said, I needed this version of you when I was still trying, not when I was already tired. I didn't lose her to another guy. I lost her to my emotional laziness. I learned something brutal. You can lose someone by not hurting them loudly, but by neglecting them quietly. What feedback could I make about this story? Well, I think this ended amicably, which is a good sign. You learned something, just like you said. You learned something brutal. And she ended things. This relationship could have been much worse. She could have been codependent on you, and you would have been the same. And basically, both of you would be destroying each other's lives. So I'm glad that this relationship ended, because should I say I'm glad this relationship ended? I feel bad saying it. You get what I'm saying. This story is from Mrs. Doubtfire. Well, I doubt that's your name, but we'll take it. I kept her in maybe. I knew early that's the part I hate admitting. 3 months in, I already knew she wasn't who I saw myself marrying. But she was good to me, and being loved like that feels like warmth in winter. You don't question the source, you just say, what do you say, man? You left me in a cliffhanger here. He literally didn't finish it. You just stay. My apologies, my friend. I thought you just say. And being loved like that feels like warmth in winter. You don't question the source, you just stay. Her name was Heidi. She did everything with intention. If she cared, you felt it. She would bring me food when I had long days. She would remember small details, ask about my future plans like she was already mentally building a life next to mine. And every time she looked at me with certainty, I felt guilty, because my feelings were softer, conditional, comfortable. Whenever she asked, what are we? I would smile. Why label it? We're good, which translates to, I want the benefits without the responsibility. She introduced me to her family. I delayed introducing her to mine. She talked about moving in someday. I said, we'll see where life takes us. That sentence is emotional anesthesia. Time passed. A year. Then 2. She built memories. I built exits in my head. If something better came along, I knew I would leave. Even though this is not, am I the a-hole? Sorry, my friend. You're the a-hole. I know it's not. I know it's not am I the a-hole story. But still. If something better came along, I knew I would leave. But until then, why not stay? Yeah, definitely the a-hole. That's how selfishness disguises itself as patience. One night she asked directly, "Do you see marriage with me one day?" I paused for a long time. Then I said, "I don't think about the future like that. I just go with the flow." You just go with the flow. Wow. Her eyes watered, but she nodded. Okay. She didn't fight, which scared me. After that, she loved me differently. Still kind, still present, but cautious. Like someone investing in a company, they know it will collapse. When she finally broke up with me, she didn't scream. She said, "I feel like I've been auditioning for a role you already decided I wouldn't get." The line still sits on my chest. I didn't cheat. I didn't abuse her. I just let her build a future inside a house I knew I wouldn't live in. And time is the one thing you cannot refund. Story number 3. This is from Tropic X3. I don't know why people don't use their real names or just their human name. The hell is a Tropic X3? I compared her to girls who didn't even want me. She never knew she was competing. That's the ugliest part. Sarah would get dressed for dates and ask, "How do I look?" And I would say, "You look good." But in my head, I was scrolling Instagram models, perfect lighting, perfect angles, girls who never knew I existed. I never insulted her directly. I just didn't appreciate her out loud. That silence did damage. She started going to the gym more, changing her hair, asking, "Do you like this better?" I thought it was self-improvement. But in reality, it was insecurity growing in real time. One night she said quietly, "I think you're always looking for something better." I denied it. Of course I did. But I was mentally shopping while holding her hand. She once said, "I don't feel chosen. I just feel that I'm simply tolerated." That sentence exposed me. I didn't realize that love requires active appreciation. So what the hell did you think love is about, man? Passive appreciation, absence appreciation. Man, I didn't realize love requires active appreciation, not just staying. Because staying without admiration feels like being someone's backup plan. She deserved to feel like the only one in the room. Instead, I made her feel like an option. My name is Melissa. I'm 18 years old. Up until a year ago, I believed my life was ordinary. I had parents, an older sister, and an older brother. I lived in a house built on a foundation of lies. I found out that my sister is my mother, my parents are my grandparents, and the man I called my brother is my biological father, the person who systematically abused a 12-year-old girl until her body forced a child into the world. I am the product of that abuse. I am the gift of life. I am the gift of life that people in state capitals and protest lines talk about. But when you look at me, you aren't looking at a miracle. You are looking at the evidence of a crime that was never punished. Pro-life rhetoric often focuses on the moment of conception, but they rarely talk about the moment of labor, especially when the mother is still a child herself. My mother was 12. Her body was not ready to carry life. It was still trying to grow its own bones. Because she was forced to carry me to term, she was left permanently disabled. She walks with a cane today, because of the way my birth shattered her hips. Every step she takes is a physical reminder of the trauma her parents forced her to endure. They hid her. They shamed her. They told the world she was fooling around with a classmate to protect the family's reputation, effectively silencing her twice. First by her abuser, then by her protectors. Growing up, I always felt a strange, cold distance from my sister. I thought it was just a personality quirk. I thought it was like those movies and TV shows, where siblings have some harmless resentment by one another at a certain phase of their lives. Now I know why she could barely look at me. Every time she saw my face, she saw the face of her attacker. She saw the reason she was sent to boarding school. She was the thing that anchored her to a household where she was forced to live under the same roof as her abuser during school breaks. I wasn't a blessing to her. I was a living, breathing trigger for her PTSD. I hear the politicians talk about the Texas heartbeat bill. I hear them say they are protecting the most vulnerable. They claim to be protecting people like me. But I am the kind of person they claim to protect. And I am telling you, this is the outcome they are voting for. They are voting for children to be forced into motherhood. They are voting for survivors to be tied to their traumas for 18 years or more. They are voting for a world where life is prioritized over the physical, mental, and spiritual well-being of the person who has to sustain it. While my mother wasn't stopped by a law, she was stopped by a lack of access and the control of her parents. The result is identical to what the heartbeat bill intends to enforce. I know what the counter-argument is. People will look at me and say, "But look, you're fine, your life is good, aren't you glad you were born?" Yes, my life is fine. My mom and I have spent the last year building a positive relationship. She sought help. I had the capacity to process the truth at 18. But I am the exception. I wasn't bounced through a foster system that was already over capacity. I wasn't raised by a mother who openly resented me every day of my life. I wasn't abused by the same man who fathered me. Most children in this situation do not end up fine. They end up as casualties of a system that cares about them until the umbilical cord is cut, and then looks the other way. It is a strange thing to look into a mirror and realize you shouldn't be there. If I could go back in time, if I could stand in that room 18 years ago and talk to my grandparents, I wouldn't argue for my own life. I would argue for hers. I would tell them to give her back her body. I would tell them to give her back her childhood. I would choose her autonomy over my existence every single time. Because no one should have the right to violate another person's body like that. Not an abuser and not a government. I'm grateful for the life I have now. I love the person my mother has become despite what was done to her. But quite frankly, I should never have been born. My existence is a testament to a violation of human rights. If you support these bills because you think you're choosing the baby, you need to understand what you are choosing for that baby. A life as a shameful secret, a life as a reminder of pain, and a life born into a struggle that no child should ever have to inherit. Stop using people like me to justify the suffering of people like my mother.
Am I the a-hole for telling my husband not locking the door is unforgivable? We are both English and we live in Ireland. Going to the pub here is like going to a friend's house. He went to his local pub in a small village of about 60 people. The only people who would be there are his family and friends, and I am 100% positive he's not cheating. The issue is that he left the door unlocked and did not turn on the house alarm, and that he chose the pub over us. The reason our 4 children and I live with my parents is because his house is literally in the middle of nowhere, and there are no good schools or good childcare nearby. So my parents offered to have myself and the kids live here. We usually travel back to his house at the weekends, except for now, while my parents are away. I had basically been up since 2:30 in the morning the night before last because I fell asleep while putting our 2-year-old son to bed, so I was exhausted by 8 p.m. last night and went to bed myself. I asked my partner, 43M, to put the kids to bed. They are both 6 years old, 2 years old. Both his kids. The older kids sleep on their own in a separate room. He then wakes me to tell me he is leaving to drive home, which is 1.5 hours away, to go to the pub. The kids were both still awake at this stage. I was half asleep and don't remember that at all. I told him to wait until they were asleep, so he says, and he says he did. I thought I could trust him to get the kids to bed and lock up the house. So I woke up this morning with him still gone, no message on my phone, looked around and see the house alarm is not even set and the patio door was unlocked. We could have been robbed, or worse. The area we live in, kids and I live with my parents for the past year, is not a bad area per se, but my car has gotten broken into 3 times in the driveway, and there have been break-ins nearby. I have been very clear about setting the alarm and locking doors, etc. Especially it's being my parents' house and they are away at the moment. I have told him this is unforgivable. He hasn't shown any remorse and he is trying to make out that I am overreacting. So, am I the a-hole? Should I forgive him for putting us in danger and not even at the very least apologizing? Am I the a-hole for not wanting my brother to bring his dog to my apartment? I have 2 rescue cats, Mimi and Peaches. Both are pretty timid by nature. Mimi and Peaches sound so freaking good, man. Beautiful names, I love them. My brother, 27M, has a bulldog who is genuinely a sweet dog, because I want to be clear about that. But he is rather large, he's loud, he has a lot of energy. Every time my brother has brought him over in the past, I have made it work by keeping the cats in the bedroom, which they hate, but it was manageable. 2 months ago, my brother asked if he could come over, and I said yes, assuming his dog, Rex, wasn't coming because we hadn't talked about it. He showed up with the dog. Before I could even get the cats into the bedroom, Rex had cornered Peaches behind the couch and was barking directly at her face. Peaches has not been the same since. She stopped eating normally for almost a month. She gets startled at everything. She hides constantly. The vet said she was showing signs of anxiety and fear, and we've been slowly getting her back to baseline. I told my brother after that Rex cannot come to my place anymore. Not forever. I said just until Peaches is doing better, and even then, we would have to do a very slow and careful introduction. He thinks I'm being dramatic and that it was one bark, and dogs and cats work these things out. He is annoyed with me and mentioned it to our parents who are now involved, which I did not ask for. Am I the a-hole for holding this boundary even though it's causing family drama. No, you're not the a-hole. If you don't want animals in your house, regardless if you have Mimi and Peaches, or you have a hamster, or you have a cockroach as a pet, or have a freaking frog, this is your right. This is your house. You don't want animals. As simple as that. I mean, and you're not just doing it for no reason. You said that the cat has become, recluse. She's not eating well. She's getting startled. This is legitimate reason for why you shouldn't have the dog anymore in your house. So yeah, no, you're not the a-hole here.
Would I be the a-hole if I went to stay with my parents for a couple of weeks because my husband's family planned a 5 to 6 week stay in our small apartment without asking me? I, 29F, got married in December, less than 6 months as of today. After being with my husband, 31M, for almost 7 years, one thing I've always been very clear about with him, both before and after the marriage, is that I need my space, and that decisions about people staying in our home should involve both of us. Recently, I found out that his sister, her husband, their child, and my in-laws have all booked tickets to come stay with us. That's about 5 to 6 weeks. I would be more than happy to host them for 1 to 2 weeks, but 5 to 6 weeks seems too overwhelming at this stage. The part that really upset me is that no one asked me beforehand. I only found out after everything was already booked. That too, when it was asked that how long they were planning to stay. We live in a 2-bedroom apartment in an extremely hot climate. And this will mean 7 people total in the house in peak summer. My husband will be at work most of the day, so I'll be the one at home with everyone. There are also lifestyle differences. So my in-laws are strict vegetarians. They won't even let us make eggs at home. While my husband and I both eat non-vegetarian diet as a staple diet. I already know I'll have to adjust when I eat at home, what I wear around the house, and generally how I live for that entire time. What hurts more is that this isn't the first time we've discussed boundaries. For years, my husband told me he understood that I need space and that he would handle these things with his family. This was the one deal breaker from my end. But he always assured me he would make sure I never have to be put in situations like this. But when I brought this up again, after finding out about the visit, his response was basically, "What do you want me to do? Everything is already booked." For context, I also moved away from my own family and my own friends to live where he works. So this house is pretty much my entire world right now. At this point, I'm honestly feeling really hurt and disrespected. It feels like decisions about my own home were made without me. I'm considering going to stay with my parents for a couple of weeks while they're here just to get some space. But unfortunately, they live on the other side of the country, so it's not a small trip. And I'm not sure spending that much would be financially advisable. Also to add, his parents keep coming to visit us for 7 to 10 days every other month anyways. This was also not discussed with me, but in good faith, I adjusted. How would you handle something like this? Well, honestly, I have no idea what to do in such situation. But here's the thing. There's a fine line between someone being picky and being bossy and obsessively controlling. If they're vegetarians, that's on them. They are your guests. You should eat whatever you want. You want to eat eggs? Go for it. Meat, chicken, whatever you want. This is your place
This is your kitchen. Here's my advice to you. Stand your ground and keep that boundary of personal space non-negotiable. Because if there is anything I learned in life, first compromisation means the second and the third and the fourth, so on. What do you guys think about this? What do you guys think about this? How would you handle such situation? And as usual, if you have any stories you want to share with me so I can offer my help and make a video about it, the email is in the description box. So basically, I, 17F, I'm having my 18th at my house. It's just dinner with my closest friends. I told everyone they may bring food if they like, but I'm going to do a little cooking, like some barbecue food and then ordering pizza. My guy friend Ryan asked if he can bring a mutual friend we have, Emily, since they're dating now. I told him, yeah, sure, because he was gonna leave early anyway. She offered to make food and I told her that would be really nice, but she didn't have to. She insisted. I made a group chat of people coming and I invited Emily to it. I sent a message talking about when to come, to wear whatever. An important thing in the message was about allergies. I have a friend coming with a really serious nut allergy. I've never seen them have a reaction, but I have been told it gets pretty bad. I wrote in the message to triple check your food doesn't have nuts and to be aware of cross-contaminating. Everyone read the message. Some replied. Emily did the thumbs up on the message. Last night, me and Emily were talking and she mentioned the food she made. I told her to show me a picture and it was a cake. The cake looked like something my mom had made before and it contained nuts. I asked if it had nuts and she said yes, but not a lot. And my friend could just not eat the cake. I told her I would rather she just didn't bring it. She then got mad and said she had gone through the trouble of making the cake, so she's bringing the cake. Or she isn't coming. I told her then she's not coming, because I was clear about my friend's allergy. And even cross-contaminating was asked to be checked. So why would I allow her to bring a whole cake? She said it was disrespectful to disinvite her and that she's Ryan's girlfriend. Lady, who the hell cares if you're Ryan's girlfriend? Who the hell is Ryan? Ryan Gosling? Damn. And that she's Ryan's girlfriend. If he's going, she's going. I told her no, it's my party and I didn't want her anymore because she was acting like a child. She stopped texting me, but then I got a call from Ryan saying I was being a massive dick and she spent ages on the cake. I said I don't care if it took her 2 whole weeks to make the goddamn cake. God, I like this girl. I was specific from the beginning on what you could bring and couldn't. The only thing you couldn't bring was something with nuts. The parts where I'm talking to these two is where I may be the a-hole. I asked if she's incompetent of reading and comprehension and if she really doesn't know any other cake recipe. He said I was being a bitch and hung up on me. Ryan's telling everyone him and Emily are not attending because I called them names and rejected Emily's cake. A lot of friends, mostly ones not coming to the party, are saying it was slack to let her make something and then uninvite her because of what she made and she put effort in that cake for my birthday. There's only 3 people saying I'm not an a-hole and one of them is my friend with the nut allergy. Hold on a second, let me read that again. There's only 3 people saying I'm not an a-hole. Okay, good, because I misunderstood. And one of them is my friend with the nut allergy. My party is tomorrow and I kind of want a perspective on this before then. Am I the a-hole? Well, obviously this is something to not take lightly, because I've said this, I believe, in the first video. Allergies are not to be taken lightly. If someone is allergic to something, and he doesn't know, he might take a big chunk of it and it could, give him a full-blown anaphylactic attack. As a medical student, I have to say it, guys, excuse me. As a medical student, allergies are so dangerous. So dangerous. So they shouldn't be taken lightly as this, what's her name? Emily? Yeah, Ryan Gosling's girlfriend. Whatever the hell her name is. Yeah, you're not the a-hole. You were very clear from the start. Don't bring nuts. If you bring nuts, you're not coming. People, man. Next story. I, 34M, have been married to my wife for 7 years. We have a 4-year-old daughter. I love her more than anything. But for the last 2 years, a nagging thought has been eating me alive. She doesn't look like me. She looks exactly like my best friend. Specifically his nose and the shape of his eyes. They dated briefly in college before I met her. They always stayed close friends. I decided to buy a home DNA kit. I told my wife it was for me. While she was at work, I took a swab from my daughter and sent it in as my sample. The result came back. She is not mine. The DNA matches my friend. How did you manage to get a DNA sample from your friend? Okay, anyway. I confronted my wife. She broke down and admitted they had a one-night slip-up when we were briefly on a break 5 years ago. I'm devastated. I've kicked her out, but now my family is calling me the asshole, not for the divorce, but for sneaking around and violating privacy. They say I should have just kept the peace. My friend is also threatening to sue me for using his DNA without permission. Am I the a-hole? Damn, I was not expecting this story, man. We went from Ryan Gosling's girlfriend to this story. Okay. Here's what I think. I think you did the right thing. I don't think you're the a-hole. Now, legally, I don't know if there's a case to be made for you using his DNA data without permission. I'm not really into these legal matters, so I'm not gonna be talking about this. But your family telling you that you're the asshole for sneaking around and violating privacy. Here's my gut instinct after reading this story. They knew about it. This is just a hunch. Doesn't have to be real. This is what I think. Because for them to not have your side and to tell you that you're violating privacy and you should have just kept the peace. Mom, dad, parents, family, whatever. What peace are you talking about? So you want this man to raise a child that is not his without him knowing about it. And I have no idea if he has more than that daughter, more than that 4-year-old daughter. He's basically paying child support for a child that is not even his. And there is this word that this woman said that she had a one-night slip-up. What a disgusting person you are. She broke down and admitted they had a one-night slip-up. Wow. Unbelievable. You're not the a-hole, my brother. You did the right thing. Guys, you might disagree with me. You can disagree with me all you want. This is why I'm making these videos. If you disagree with me, go to the comment section. Tell me why you disagree with me. Because I want to listen, I want to hear more than one opinion. Am I the asshole for asking my friend to not bring her brother on our girls' trip? This happened a few years back, but still to this day, when I think about it, I get a little shock of a pain in my heart. When COVID started, a small group of women and I started a virtual anonymous addicts. Yeah, virtual anonymous addicts meeting so we could continue to connect and have meetings when we could no longer do so in person. We all got close and it was a great little group. COVID restrictions began to wane and we planned a weekend trip to this awesome big house in the mountains. If memory serves, altogether it was 9 or 10 of us. There was a fire pit, the property was gorgeous. We all were really excited. It then became known to me that the brother of one of the women in the group was planning on attending it. Just kind of put a pit in my stomach. I thought this was going to be a woman's trip for our group. I felt put off by this brother, who I didn't know, joining. He also wasn't sober, also not an alcoholic, just a social drinker. I cannot imagine he would have drunk during the weekend, but I also wasn't sure. Let's call the girl with the brother Julie, and her brother can be Joe. As a person who tries to do her best to communicate openly and straightforwardly, with direction of course, I definitely don't think just because I think something, it must be said. I reached out to Julie directly and was very, very careful with my words because I did not want to offend. The goal was to say how I was feeling and gently ask or suggest if this weekend away could remain a trip for our sober group of women without Joe. She did not like this and quickly began surveying other women in the group to see if they also felt this way. Some did, some did not. Things started to spiral. These were my friends, and I had hoped my saying I'm not super comfortable with Joe coming wasn't going to be so problematic. But it became clear that there were women in the group that wanted to caretake Julie and Joe's feelings, and mine were not as important. I'm all about inclusivity, but I did not want to take this trip with a guy I didn't know, who may or may not have brought booze. Ultimately, the trip was cancelled and I felt deeply disappointed. The kicker is, the majority of the group went on to plan a camping trip without me, inviting Joe. I only found out because the 3 women who had my back were invited and told me they declined. Me and those 3 ended up going on our own camping trip and had a nice time. But man, were my feelings hurt. I did not understand how the group couldn't be objective. If an all-female group of bridesmaids went on a trip, why would one person bring their brother? Or at least why not bring it to the group and ask, hey, would it be cool if I invited someone? We planned a trip for the members of our group meeting. There was no talk of bringing significant others or additional guests. Am I the asshole for asking Julie not to bring her brother Joe on that trip? Obviously, clearly, evidently, you're not the asshole. Well, this started as a group of women only, so it makes absolutely no sense for this Julie to bring her brother. Because imagine Julie brought her brother and Sarah brought her, nephew, and Alyssa brought her dad. That wouldn't be like a group meeting. That would be just a freaking festival. But yeah, I understand that your feelings were hurt because you thought that, these women had your back. Most of them didn't. But the silver lining, at least you had the trip with those 3 that had your back. Those are real friends because, you know real friends from fake friends if they have your back. Story number 2. I feel like I'm going crazy. One of my very best friends, when we hang out, he constantly is checking his phone, whether it is replying to a message the second it arrives or scrolling Insta. I just find it so annoying. He always has been a person who likes being on the phone, but lately I've noticed it getting worse when we hang out, in a group or just us sitting. What has sparked this post is when recently went on a night out together, just the 2 of us, and for the first few hours he would switch between chatting away or spending time scrolling on his phone, checking to see updates from people. It's not like we run out of things to talk about. We're always in communication about our lives and call it and call at least once a week. So I know it's not an issue of, oh, we have nothing in common or nothing to talk about. Now, admittedly, I'm not one to be on the phone much. So I'm wondering, is it a me issue? Because I'm not used to it. It's getting to the stage where I don't enjoy hanging out together when I know in a public setting, if someone looks over, it is him on his phone and me waiting to be done with his phone. I brought it up to him and got really annoyed, and he got really annoyed and said that it isn't his fault that he's always on his phone with people to respond to. I'm worried I'm in the wrong here. So neither of you are in the wrong here. That's like the beautiful thing. Neither of you. You're not the a-hole. Objectively speaking, he's not the a-hole either. Why am I saying objectively speaking? Because that's what he wants. He wants to be on his phone. Deal with it. Whenever I'm out, whenever I'm having coffee with friends or eating with friends, I never take my phone with me. I have two phones. One is a very simple button phone with just a SIM card. The other one is a smartphone. Whenever I go out, I take the button phone, a very old brick phone. I don't want to take the smartphone because I know how these things are addictive. Social media and everything in social media is designed, including YouTube. Everything on social media is designed to keep you hooked to it for as long as possible. So you have two choices here. One, accept it, deal with it. You might have like in a setting of 1 hour, you might have 10 minutes of uninterrupted conversations. You might have 5 minutes, you might have 20 minutes. That's choice A or option A. Option B, just maybe stop having in real life settings or in real life meetings and just keep it on the phone where you at least have his full attention. Yeah, that's it. That's what I have to say. Jasmine has been my best friend since high school, and we've always been close. I'm organized and very good at planning, so I always enjoy planning stuff for us. And that includes her birthday parties. This year, she turned 21, and we agreed to organize a big party at my house. I spent $600, invited about 15 of our mutual friends, which is usually the amount of people we would have around. I was with Jasmine when I overheard her talking to Jess about the party and found out she invited Jess. Jess was my school bully. She and her friends never liked me, and I never liked the fact that Jasmine, my best friend, was talking to Jess. They aren't really close. They aren't too close. So I overlooked. Jasmine knows Jess, and her friends don't like me. She knew about it. She knew about it all. And at some point, Jess has asked her why she's still friends with me. I was mad about this invitation and told her I haven't seen Jess in years and don't want to. Jasmine insisted Jess has changed and she will like me now since she's not so close to the crew anymore. I thought about it and imagined seeing Jess again in the same room. All that didn't sit well with me, no matter how much she has changed. I just said no and told her if Jess comes, the party is off. She said I was being dramatic and said she will tell Jess not to come. But 2 days later, I looked into group chat. Jasmine added Jess and posted, "Can't wait for Saturday's OP's house." I confronted Jasmine. She said I shouldn't worry, that she's making sure she resolves everything between me and Jess. I said no, and I don't want to. I canceled the party and told everyone it's off. I refunded what I could, packed up decorations. Jasmine called me selfish for ruining her party and not wanting to reconcile with Jess, her other friend. Now she sees me as a bad friend. Everyone thinks seeing Jess to talk about old time was best, and Jasmine was trying to help me heal. The thing is, I don't want to heal. I just want to forget. Am I the a-hole for canceling? Absolutely not. So there is this unwritten rule about friends. Honestly, I don't know if this rule exists like between women, but between men, Most of the time it's like it's a known fact or it's a known rule. What is this rule? Well, this rule says if my friend doesn't like someone, if my best friend doesn't like someone because of some beef, because of some problem, because of, you know, physical altercations, verbal altercations, that person can no longer be friends with me ever. So if James was my best friend and James had some issues with this guy that I'm familiar with, let's say his name is Michael, and James says to me that Michael, you know, I don't like this guy, he's bad to me, he's been bullying me since first grade. That's it. Michael is no longer someone that I can be friends with, that I can have a conversation with. Very simple. So you're not the a-hole. I'm actually very, very glad you stood up for yourself and didn't let her affect you. Man, let me talk about this shit. This is gonna be some talking about old memories. I had a bully in the 6th grade, okay? I hated his guts. I hated his face. I hated everything about it. The 6th grade was the last time I ever saw him. That was back in 2013 or something. 2012, I believe. Fast forward to 2023. I met him. I recognized him. The reason I recognized him because he was still the same. He looked like he didn't even go through puberty. His face was this disgusting, slimy face. You might think that, you know, time heals everything and that I'm gonna reconcile this or he's a different person. Hell no. I was waiting for him to say some shit. Damn, that was... I needed to say that shit. Yeah, I feel good now saying it. Nobody has... I've never said this to anyone before, so it's an exclusive story. Anyway, I, 20F, have a close friend, 21F, who has been asking me for months to go to LA for a fun summer trip. Now, we live around 8 hours away, so I kind of just assumed we would fly. And the other day when she brought it up, I told her we should probably book our flight soon. To that, she looked really confused and told me how she couldn't afford plane tickets and she wanted to drive. I was sort of confused because if she cannot afford $150 plane ticket, how is she planning to pay for activities and places she wants to go? Nubu, I don't know what that is, Nubu. Anyway, jet skiing, shopping, clubs, etc., which all add up quick. She also doesn't have her license, which means I would have to do all the driving, which would be hard, as I have bad back issues, and driving for so long would be painful. She kinda just laughed and said, since I have money, she assumed I would pay for a majority of her expenses. I was shocked because why would she assume I would pay for her expenses without even asking? I have no problem covering something like drinks or ice cream, but to assume I would pay for everything by myself, except for the hotel, we had previously agreed to split the hotel 50-50. I told her that this trip was her idea, and she shouldn't have asked me to go if she was expecting me to pay for everything. She's upset and complaining about how it's unfair since I can afford to pay for her. Am I the a-hole? Update. I told her for her to invite me on a trip, then assume I would cover expenses like this was ridiculous. As for now, I'm just gonna cut back and let our friendship fizzle off. We've been friends for years, but this was childish and out of line. Thanks for all the advice. Let's go back to the question. Am I the a-hole? No, absolutely not. So in life, unfortunately, some people don't grow to become adults. And this is like one of the hot takes that I'm gonna probably make in another video. One of my hot takes is that adults don't exist. There is no such thing as adults. You just have people, children, who are older. Yeah, the law considers them to be adults legally. They can vote, they can drink alcohol, do stuff like that. But that doesn't mean that they have, morphed or changed forms into this specific human being entity. Hell no. So the reason I'm saying this hot take is some people don't change. They want to depend on people. They want to be leechers. They want to live their lives on the expense of others. Your friend here, she's 21F. I mean, I'm not saying that she's young, like she's like childish, but she's not old either. So she might change in the future, but you're not really responsible for changing people. You're not responsible for paying for people's trips and vacations. So obviously you're not the a-hole, but I want to talk about this hot take about people, that there is no such thing as adults, just children who are older. Next story. I'm not gonna read that one. Next story. So I, 22F, and my boyfriend, 23M, we're going for a dinner in a restaurant that he works at as a pastry chef. I ordered a Caesar tortilla, and after 45 minutes of waiting, damn, that's a long time for a Caesar tortilla, I received a Caesar salad. I said to him that's not what I have ordered, and he told me, wait, that he will go to the kitchen and make me a tortilla. After a few minutes, he came back with the plate. It was just the previously made salad stuffed in the tortilla. The crispy breadcrumbs from the salad were inside. I told him that I am not going to eat that, because that is not what I ordered. He told me that it's basically the same thing and that I should just eat it. But it's not the same thing. I specially wanted the tortilla because of the crispy bacon and the cheese that melts inside. But in the salad, there are just thin slices that I don't even like the taste of. He told me that the kitchen will close soon. Bear in mind, when I ordered, it was 9 p.m. Kitchen closes at 11 and the restaurant at 12. And that I should just eat it because I was complaining for the last 3 to 4 hours that I'm starving. I hate that guy already. I told him that is not the point and that we can just go somewhere else to eat. He ended up telling his colleague, the waitress, to take it off the bill, and we went to a fast food place to eat. He ended up being mad because I caused the scene and made him ashamed in front of his colleagues. Mind you, I'm the quiet type, so I have just told him that I won't eat that. And then he talked to his colleague. So, am I the asshole for not just eating something that I didn't order? More context. It went down like this. I told the waitress, excuse me, but I've ordered the tortilla. She seemed annoyed, but said, okay, we will make it. My boyfriend then told me to wait and went there to make me a tortilla. When he came back with the dish, I told him I do not want to eat the salad stuffed in the tortilla and that it is not important anymore, that we can just go anywhere else to eat, in a very normal tone. I really was not mad at all. I was just hungry. He told me, just eat it. I refused. He then called the waitress and told her to take it off the bill. We left. I ate somewhere else. He told me that I have embarrassed him because him telling his colleague to take it off the bill is causing a scene. That's the whole story. He had been working there for a few months and he got the job because my dad's good friend is the co-owner. This story is very, very simple. Or very, very simple to answer you, to be exact. I'm not really the type of of person that would like wreck homes, be a home wrecker, stuff like that. But the way you were explaining, now bear in mind, I haven't listened to his side of the story. I'm just taking your side of the story as what exactly happened. The way he talks to you, the way he's handling this entire situation is just so alarming. It is so disgusting. He's telling you to eat it. Just eat it. You wrote that like 3 times. Just eat it. It's the same thing. Bro, listen, man. You should care about the people who are close to you more than your colleagues. Your colleagues are not your friends. They're not your family. They're not your girlfriend. They are people that you work with. If you quit tomorrow, they're not gonna give 2 shits about you. They're just gonna keep working. They're gonna clock in and clock out every single day, with you in the restaurant or without you. Your girlfriend is gonna be there for you. I don't know if you're planning to marry her. Hopefully not, to be honest. This is my 2 cents. I hope you don't marry her. Family members should be treated as, as VIPs, basically. If a family member comes to your place of work and he wanted something, whether it's a restaurant, whether it's a freaking toy store, whether it's a grocery store, they should be treated like they are important, that the things they want are the utmost priority. Not to have shortcuts, to take the freaking Caesar salad and stuff it in a tortilla. This is like unbelievable. Unbelievable. By the way, you're not the a-hole for the last story. I don't know if I made that obvious or not, but in case I didn't, you're not the a-hole. My husband, 58M, and I, 48F, went out to dinner at a cute little eatery for my birthday. We've been married for 25 years and rarely eat out. He doesn't like spending the money for restaurant food. However, my mother, who knows how much I enjoy trying out new restaurants, gave me $100 as a gift, and she told the hubs she would babysit so that the 2 of us could eat out. It's a beautiful little place. We score a patio table, and because the hubs isn't talking, I start making up stories about the people around us. He's a forensic detective. She sells expensive candles. Silly stuff. He's still not talking. By the time our entrees show, I realize I'm essentially talking to myself and feel foolish. So I stop talking too. I've lost my appetite, so I wait for him to finish and give the waiter my card. Sitting in silence, when we were driving home, I said, I know you don't like spending money on eating out, but it was a gift from my mother for my birthday. If you're going to punish me by refusing to talk to me, I wish you would have just told me, and I would have taken our daughter instead. He was offended and huffed. I have nothing to apologize for. Am I the asshole for thinking he would be pleasant company? I've definitely learned my lesson. Context. My husband goes silent and refuses to talk to me as punishment when he gets upset. I didn't realize this was what was happening until around the time the entrees arrived. I guess I should have picked it up more quickly, but I was excited about being out. And no, he never said he didn't want to go beforehand. I didn't force him to go. You know what's one of the worst feelings in life? Not the worst, but one of the worst feelings in life is when you get disappointed by someone that you had great hopes or great expectations of. in my opinion, this has to be like one of the worst feelings to have, especially if you're like happy and excited and high spirited to do something, and they just shut you down. It's like, I know you, like you're a family member, you're close to me, like why would you do that? This was exactly what was happening in this story. For this woman's birthday, she was excited to eat out at this restaurant, and I think she wanted to go out to this restaurant because her mom gave her the money. That's what I think. But you just made this whole thing like a disgusting mess. Oh, and by the way, this is like very, very important to say. This whole thing, this whole trend about the silent punishment or the silent treatment is by far one of the worst traits to have in a human being. If you're upset about something, talk. You're not living on an island by yourself, where you can just be silent as a way of punishment, as a way of disciplining people. This is what I genuinely think. This is like an advice or a hot take, if you want to consider it. I genuinely believe that there should be a class called How to Communicate from the first grade all the way to the 12th grade. I believe that these first 12 years of life, or academic years at least, they're very important, and they shape up the future adults. Because the silent treatment is not something someone with communication skills would do. You're not the a-hole. I have no idea if he's gonna change or not, to be honest, but this is something to definitely take into consideration. This whole silent treatment, silent punishment should be removed completely from this relationship between you and him. In the future, just like you said, it's probably prudent to take someone else if he's not a fan of eating out.
My name is Bruce. In 2014, I was a 17-year-old high school junior with a talent for calculus. And the reason why I loved calculus was because I have a crazy crush on my teacher, Miss Thorne. Brenda Thorne was 25, only 8 years older than me. But in high school, 8 years is a lifetime. She was brilliant, sharp-tongued, and didn't treat us like children. She treated us like future adults. To a teenage boy, that kind of respect is intoxicating. I wasn't a star pupil in the traditional sense, but I was the one who stayed after class to discuss the twisted intricacies of non-Euclidean geometry. There was never anything inappropriate. No moments, no secret texts, just a high-voltage intellectual connection that made the rest of my high school experience feel like it was playing in black and white. I graduated in 2015. On the last day of school, I shook Brenda's hand. I wanted to say something dark and profound. Something that would make her remember me. But I choked. I just said, "Thanks for the math, Miss Thorne." She smiled that specific smile and said, "Go do something great with it, Bruce." I went off to a top-tier engineering university 300 miles away. I dated girls my own age, I joined the frat, and I built a life. But every time I looked at a blueprint or solved a complex equation, I heard her voice. My teacher had become the inner monologue of my ambition. 5 years later, I was 22 and working my first real job back in my hometown. It was a rainy Tuesday. It was a rainy Tuesday night at a local dive bar. I was sitting in a corner booth when she walked in. She wasn't Miss Thorne anymore. She was Brenda. She was 30, looking slightly tired, holding a stack of ungraded papers. She recognized me instantly. Bruce, the boy who argued that parallel lines could eventually meet. We talked for 4 hours. You know, I know what that means. 4 hours, it might seem like a lot, but trust me. Those type of talks, they just vanish. We talked for 4 hours. The age gap that had felt like a canyon in high school now felt like a small crack in the pavement. I was a man with a career. She was a woman navigating the burnout of a decade in the public school system. The power dynamic had shifted. I wasn't looking up at a pedestal anymore. I was looking across a table at a peer. Dating your former teacher in a small town is an evil kind of gauntlet. We try to keep it a secret at first. We'd meet in cities 40 miles away. We'd stay in. The first time I kissed her, it felt like a crazy act of rebellion. Even though we were both legal adults, there was a lingering sense of the forbidden that we had to work through. She struggled with the guilt of grooming thoughts, even though we hadn't spoken for 5 years. I struggled with the star pupil syndrome, always wanting to impress her. The glass house broke when we ran into my former principal at a grocery store. The look on his face was dark. Within 48 hours, the rumors were a wildfire. People called it evil. They said she must have prepped him. My own parents were confused, unable to see past the 2014 version of us. Brenda was called into the superintendent's office. Even though she hadn't broken a single law or a school policy, the optics were considered moral failures of her character. She almost broke up with me. She told me she was ruining my life, making me a social pariah before I even turned 24. I didn't let her walk away. I used the same logic she taught me in AP Calculus. I told her that if the foundation is solid, the building can withstand any storm. I don't know about any storm, but I'll let it pass. In high school, you were the teacher and I was the student, I told her. But the classroom is gone, Brenda. We're out in the open now. We moved to a different county. We started over where the Miss Thorne label didn't exist. I watched her transition out of teaching and into curriculum design. I became a senior partner at my firm. We grew into a life that wasn't defined by a 2014 gradebook. We got married on my 26th birthday. Congratulations. She was 34. The guest list was small. Perfect. There were no former teachers there and very few of my old classmates. But as we stood at the altar, I realized that our relationship was the ultimate proof we had survived the twisted judgment of a town that loves a scandal. Yeah, small towns tend to love scandals. I looked at my wife, not my teacher, not my crush, but my partner. The 8-year gap was still there, but it didn't matter. In the geometry of our lives, the lines had finally met. Beautiful, beautiful story, man. Congratulations again, and thank you for sharing this story with us. I do have a story of my own, since this really hit home with me. It happened in 10th grade, and it was also yours was calculus, right? Mine was maths. Technically calculus as well. My 10th grade math teacher was intoxicating. That's the word I would use, which is the word you used as well. She was so classy. She was so smart. I remember I would ask her about anything. anything related to mathematics, and she would never like stutter or take a few seconds to think about it. Like the answer was already there, always there. And the only thing that I regret to this day, the only thing that I regret, so she was married, okay? So I wasn't like gonna pursue something like that. But I think that maybe her husband, maybe someone else told her that she should pluck her eyebrows. So I remember at the beginning of every week, I would see her eyebrows and they would feel red, they would look red, because she would pluck them during the weekends. I don't know who told her that thin eyebrows, that you should pluck them. To have thin eyebrows is like the new trend. I'm not saying thin eyebrows are bad, by the way. I'm just saying that if you have thick eyebrows, you shouldn't pluck them to make them thin. Like, I felt she was in so much pain every week. Like, I just wanted to tell her, can I have a minute with you? Please, please don't pluck your eyebrows again. They look perfect as they are. But I never really said that, so I choked as well. Like, that's the biggest regret I have. Because I felt like she was doing something completely unnecessary and painful. Plucking hair is not like cutting it. It's not like trimming it. It's freaking painful. Yeah, that's my story.
I'm writing this because I've been sitting in a quiet house for 3 days and the silence is screaming. My mum, 58F, had been fighting stage 4 glioblastoma for 14 months. If you know anything about brain cancer, you know it doesn't just kill you. It slowly fades you away. It takes your speech, then your mobility, then your memory. By late January, Mum was non-responsive. She spent 22 hours a day in a hospital bed in our living room. Her breathing heavy and ragged, what the hospice nurses call the Cheyenne-Stokes rhythm. I, 26F, had become a shell. I was her primary caregiver. My daily tasks were measuring milliliters of morphine and turning her body every 4 hours to prevent sores. I had already grieved her. I had said my goodbyes to a woman who couldn't hear me. Then came Tuesday. I woke up at 6 a.m. to a sound I hadn't heard in months. The smell of coffee and the clinking of ceramics. I ran into the kitchen, my heart hammering against my ribs. My mother, the woman who hadn't sat up on her own in weeks, was standing at the counter. She was wearing her favorite silk robe. Her hair was brushed. The vacant, cloudy look in her eyes was gone. "Good morning, Bug," she said. Using my childhood nickname, she smiled at me, a real, sharp, present smile. "The garden looks a bit dry. I think we should go out and check the hydrangeas after breakfast." I stood there, frozen. I didn't call the nurse. I didn't grab the vital monitor. I just fell into her arms and sobbed. She smelled like peppermint and Dove soap, not the sterile metallic scent of the sick room. "It's a miracle," I whispered into her shoulder. "Mum, you're back." That day was a fever dream. We didn't talk about cancer. We didn't talk about the end. We talked about my wedding, which I had cancelled to care for her. We looked through old photos album, and she ate. She actually ate a full bowl of chicken soup. She remembered everything. She told me where she had hidden the spare key to the safety deposit box, but she said it so casually, like it was just a bit of housekeeping. before a long trip. I feel so light, Clara, she told me as we sat on the porch. The sun was hitting her face, and for a moment, that look sick people have on their faces was gone, like the fog had finally lifted. I can see everything so clearly now. I allowed myself to believe. I went to the bathroom and searched glioblastoma spontaneous remission on my phone. I saw stories of miracles. I started planning a trip to the coast for the spring. I thought we had beaten the odds. Around 4 p.m, the hospice nurse, Maria, arrived for her routine check. I pulled her aside in the hallway, beaming. "She's better, Maria. Look at her. She's sitting up. She's talking." I expected Maria to cheer. I expected her to call the doctor. Instead, her face fell. She looked at me with a pity that felt like a physical blow. "Clara," she whispered, taking my hands. "Look at me. This is the rally. It's called terminal acidity." "No," I pulled away. "She's eating. She's lucid. Miracles do happen." "It's the body's final gift," Maria said softly. "It's a surge of adrenaline and neurochemicals. The system is clearing itself for one last goodbye. Don't waste this time, Clara. Say everything you need to say, because when this energy runs out, it's over." I hated her in the moment. I wanted to scream at her for being a cynic. I went back into the room and I saw Mum looking at the photo of my dad. She looked tired. Not nap kind of tired, but the end of a marathon kind of tired. As the sun began to set, the color started to drain from her face. The vibrancy didn't leave all at once. It just melted away, going faster and faster. "Bug," she said, her voice dropping back into that raspy whisper. She reached out and took my hand. Her skin was starting to feel cold again. "I'm so glad we had today. I needed you to know I'm not scared anymore." "Mom, don't," I cried. "Just rest. You'll be stronger tomorrow." She shook her head slowly. "Tomorrow is for you, Clara." Today was for us. I've said what I wanted to say. I love you. I am so proud of the woman you are. She closed her eyes. It wasn't the deep, peaceful sleep of the morning. It felt like she was shutting everything down. By 8 p.m, the ragged breathing, the death rattle was back. By midnight, she was non-responsive again. She passed away at 4:14 a.m. the next morning. The transition was so quiet I almost missed it. One breath, then nothing. The silence that followed was different from the silence of her being sick. It was the silence of a house that had been emptied of its soul. The rally is a phenomenon that science can't fully explain. But I've realized its purpose. It is not a cure. It is a bridge. It's the universe giving you one last chance to memorize the sound of their voice and the way they look when they are in pain, when they are not in pain. But it's also a curse, because for 8 hours, I had my mother back, and having her back made losing her a second time almost unbearable. I'm sitting here now, looking at the half-empty bowl of chicken soup on the counter. It's the only physical proof that yesterday happened. I've read dozens of these stories like mine on the internet since she passed. Everyone says the same thing. I thought they were getting better. If you're caring for someone and they just suddenly wake up, If they ask you for their favorite food or tell a joke they haven't told in years, don't look for a medical explanation. Don't look for a miracle. Just stay with them. Hold their hand. Listen to every word, because the rally is the most beautiful lie you will ever be told, and you only get to hear it once.
My name is Joseph. I'm 24 years old, but that number is a biological variable. According to my driver's license, I was born in 2002. According to my brain, I've been alive for so long. I feel I've been around for hundreds of years. I have a condition the medical community calls temporal dilation syndrome. They see it as a glitch in the REM cycle, rapid eye movement, the REM cycle. To them, my eyes move too fast, which makes the brain experience dreams very differently to other normal humans. For normal people, when they dream, most dreams only feel like few hours or few days at best. To me, every night when I close my eyes in my studio apartment in Chicago, I don't just dream. I wake up somewhere else. I wake up as someone else. I live every second, every meal, every commute, every slow afternoon watching the rain. I live until I die. And then the alarm goes off. And I'm back in Chicago, 24 years old, with the taste of life I just lost still fresh on my tongue. Imagine living through 80 years of history, falling in love, raising children, watching those children grow old and die, only to wake up and realize it was Tuesday night, and you have a shift at a coffee shop in 20 minutes. It isn't just exhausting, it is a painful dismantling of the soul. Last night, I went to sleep at 11 p.m. I woke up on a wooden stool in a crammed shop in London. Well, since it's in London, it only makes sense if I switch up my accent. Last night, I went to sleep at 11 p.m. I woke up on a wooden stool in a crammed shop in London. 1882. My name was Thomas. I was 17, an apprentice to a man named Mr. Abernathy. I lived that life for 64 years. I remember the exact weight of a jeweler's loop, or lope, I don't know what that is. A jeweler's lope against my eye socket. I remember the smell of brass polish and the dry metallic dust of the gears. I met Eliza in 1890. She was the baker's daughter. I don't know how other people dream, but when I dream, I get hungry. And that's how I met her. She makes amazing sourdough bread. We had a slow, patient romance, defined by walks in Hyde Park, and the shared silence of a growing family. We had 4 children, Henry, Alice, George, and little Mary. I watched them grow. I felt the pride of Henry's first job, and the dark terror when my daughter Mary died of scarlet fever in 1898. I lived through the turn of the century. I watched the world change from gaslight to the harsh buzz of electricity. I grew old. My hands, once capable of the finest micro-engineering, became gnarled and shaky. Eliza died in 1924. I buried her on a grey, rainy Tuesday and spent the next decade waiting for my own clock to run out. When I died at 81, slumped over a pocket watch she gave me, I felt a sense of peace. Then the alarm went off. I sat up in Chicago, 24 years old, smooth-skinned and healthy. I wept because I had 60 years of memories of a woman who never existed, and I didn't even have a photo of her. Eliza wasn't just a dream, she was my wife. All these years, she cooked my food, she was the mother of my kids, she comforted me when things felt too heavy. I don't really expect you guys to understand this type of hurt, I just want to vent. The next night was Cairo. I was a fisherman on a rugged coastline. I lived that life for 50 years. This life was defined by the salt, the way it crusted in my hair, the way it ate at the wood of my boat. I married Saki. These names sound Vietnamese or Asian or something like that. We had 6 children. I lived through the slow, grinding poverty of the coast. I watched 3 of my sons disappear to a war on a distant mainland. I felt the grief every single time. It wasn't a dream grief. It was the kind of pain that makes you want to rip your own ribs out of your chest. By the time I died, a withered old man on a straw mat, I was glad to go. I wanted the blackness. But the blackness is never permanent for me. I woke up on my sofa in Chicago. I went to the bathroom and looked at my face. And I didn't recognize the boy in the mirror. He looked like a stranger. He looked like a puppet. I have become a ghost in my own real life. I look at people on the subway and I see their blueprints. I see how temporary they are. They are worried about their school tuitions and their favorite coffee shop closing. And I'm worried about whether I'll wake up tonight in a trench in a war I haven't fought yet, or in a cabin in the mountains. I've lived so many lives that the real world feels like the dream. It is too short, it is too shallow. I've started to hate the sun because it means I'm awake. It means I'm awake. I've started to crave the shadow life because that's where the weight is. How can I care about a career when I've already been a watchmaker, a jeweler, a soldier and a teacher? I'm a cemetery walking around in a 24-year-old's body. The people around me are toddlers playing with blocks. And I'm a man who has seen the rise and fall of empires and the time it takes to recharge a phone. In one life, I was a scholar in a world of vellum and stone. I don't know what vellum is. I spent 70 years studying the stars. I never married. I lived in total, crushing solitude. I spent every day for 7 decades. You telling me you spent every day of your first year too? Or maybe you were 90? I don't know. I spent every day for 7 decades calculating the movements of planets I would never visit. I felt the cold of stone floors in my marrow. I felt the loneliness like a physical shroud. When I finally died, I felt a sense of relief that I had finally solved the problem of existence. Then I woke up in Chicago, 8:30 a.m. I had a shift at the coffee shop at 9 a.m. A customer complained that their latte was too lukewarm. I looked at him, this man who was worried about the temperature of a drink, and I felt a surge of pure, dark hatred. I wanted to tell him about the 7 years of cold I had just endured. My real brain is failing. The storage is full. I'm starting to speak in the wrong dialects. I call my neighbors names. I call my neighbors by names from the 1800s. I find myself looking for the sea in the middle of a landlocked city. Is Chicago landlocked? I don't know, maybe. The doctors want to put me on a new drug to suppress REM sleep. They want to save me, but they don't realize that saving me means killing the thousands of people I've been. If I stop sleeping, Eliza dies. Saki dies. like children across the centuries vanished. I'm desynchronizing soon. I won't know which body is the one that needs to breathe. Tonight, I'm going to sleep and I'm going to try to stay there. I've learned how to anchor myself in the dream lives. I'm laying down now. I'm not setting an alarm. I don't want to be Joseph anymore. Joseph is a boring boy with a boring life. I want to be the man who lives until the world itself runs out of time. I'm closing my eyes. Goodbye. Listen, man. Did you tell me your name at the beginning of the story? The beginning of this email you sent me? Joseph, okay. I'm sorry, so many names I forgot the real name. Hey, Joseph, I don't know if it's you who sent me the email or not. I have no idea if any of what you said is true or not. I've never ever heard of this temporal dilation syndrome. I mean, I've had dreams where they felt like a reality. I've had dreams that felt like they were months. But you're telling me you're living 70 years, 80, 60 years, 80 years. That is never heard of. I don't know what to say. I hope you're fine now. If I were you, I would definitely try those REM suppression pills. It might feel weird at first, but if this is what you're going through every single night, you will burn your brain eventually. You're only 24. You can't live like this for the rest of your life. Imagine you're becoming 50 or 60 years. You would have lived at least like thousands of lives. Literally like hundreds of thousands of years. Yeah, like in case this is true, get that thing sorted out. ASAP.
Hey, psst, did you sleep yet? If you made it to the end, thank you so much. You probably need to subscribe because I need you in my audience. You are my target audience. If you binge watched 3 hours and 15 minutes or something, I feel it's a big waste of time and energy if you just disappear from my channel. So, stick around. Tell me what story you like the most. Tell me what stories you'd like to hear more of in the future. Take care. Good night.